All right, welcome everybody to the City of Grand Rapids Planning Commission meeting for September 25th, 2025. We have 4 public hearings today and a site plan review. Before we get into it, I'll just go over our procedures. Staff will come up at the beginning of the case and provide their overview. Then the applicant will have an opportunity to add additional information. We'll open the public hearing, hear from folks. Everyone will have an opportunity to address comments to the commission for up to 3 minutes. And then after we close the public hearing, the applicant will have an opportunity to address any of the comments heard, and then we will have our deliberation and decision. Reminders that this meeting is streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, and also that staff has prepared draft language for resolutions that include findings for both for and against that we have at our disposal to use as we wish. So if you see us reading, that's why. No decisions have been made in advance. And with that, we'll go back to the agenda. Any conflicts of interest? All right, seeing none, we can start with 1041 Leonard. Thanks.
The first case on our agenda today is for 1041 Leonard. The applicant is requesting approval to construct a prayer park with an open-air pavilion in an existing surface parking lot to facilitate outdoor uses associated with the East Leonard Christian Reformed Church that is located at 1027 Leonard Street. So 1041 Leonard Street is in the MCN LDR zone district, mid-century neighborhood, low-density residential. It is within the Butterworth area-specific plan, and the plan's future use indicates this area would be compact neighborhood, which includes a variety of uses, mostly residential, and uses that support the residential as well. The property is located on the north side of Leonard Street between Spring and Burke Avenue. The property is approximately 36,000 square feet in area. As you can see in this image, it is a surface parking lot. It's been a surface parking lot since, I think, around the early 1960s. This is an image of what the site looks like today. You can see the East Leonard Christian Reformed Church to the west across Spring Street. There's no formal screening or landscape buffer around the parking lot. There's some privacy fence and trees along the north side of the parking lot. It's difficult to tell if that belongs to the residential property to the north or the subject property. There's one curb cut that provides access to the parking lot from each of the streets. And the parking spaces are angled to so vehicles would travel in a clockwise fashion. A little bit of history on the proposed use and the subject property. According to zoning enforcement records, uses such as drive-through prayer and fundraising activities have been operating in the parking lot since around 2002. The applicant is here today because they want to legally establish those uses. And although the uses are intended to be accessory to the church, because they are on a separate property, it does require the special land use review by the Planning Commission. Currently, in this parking lot, the church, and I'll let them go into more detail about what the uses entail, but twice a week they set up a tent to provide drive-through prayer for passersby. So the applicant wishes to provide a permanent shelter for this use, and that really led to the site plan that they're proposing today. Approximately 5,000 feet of the parking lot pavement will be removed and replaced with green space, walkways, and this open air pavilion. you can see on the southeast corner of the parking lot, there is a utility easement. And so there isn't anything presented to be planned for that area. The Planning Commission may wish to consider if, it's appropriate to extend the lawn area to the corner to, help activate that space. But that's an explanation of why that corner was specifically avoided to be incorporated in the plan. The parking lot will be reconfigured and the traffic circulation will move in a counterclockwise fashion. This is to allow for the parking spaces for the accessory church use and to facilitate the drive-through prayer, which really was a driver of the site plan design. In addition to the park improvements, there is additional landscaping proposed to be installed on the north side of the property line to help screen the parking lot, help screen the parking lot use to the residential property to the north. The pavilion will be approximately 700 square feet. It'll be a wood frame structure with an asphalt shingled roof set on a concrete slab. The plan indicates that T111 will be the finished material around a small storage closet that will be incorporated as part of the open-air pavilion. The applicant has let staff know that they will be using a fiber cement siding instead of the T111 material. Fiber cement more closely aligns with the durable, high-quality material requirement of the zoning ordinance. The park is intended to be used for the church activities, and it will also be open and available for public use. And I will defer to the applicant to talk more about the plan for that as well. There were 2 letters received from two people in the neighborhood, and there were some concerns over the vehicle-oriented use proposed with the site changes, and those letters have been included in your packet. So in sum, we are asking the Planning Commission to consider the religious institution use and the outdoor activities on this property, and the impacts of the park and pavilion on the overall site and parking lot design. Are there any questions for me?
Laura, in the staff report, you mentioned a new ADA access ramp proposed. Can you highlight that potentially on the plan here?
That is found on Spring Street. There's an existing walkway, and it looks like there's a proposed ramp to be installed. That is, because it's in the public way, that would need to be reviewed and approved by the engineering department.
Okay.
And so that would go through a separate review process.
Okay, thank you.
So that walkway already exists but leads to nothing. Like, do we have any history as to how that walkway came to be? No.
I don't.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And would there be no connection then on the west side?
The connection to connect the parking lot to the church?
Yeah, so like next to just to the east of the church property, like if there's, on the west side of the parking lot, there looks like there's an ADA ramp, and then it goes to nothing on the other side? Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's what's on the plan. There's no ramp down from that existing walkway, so the applicant appears to wish to add that ramp in there. The engineering department would review that, and it may or may not be approved as proposed.
Got it.
The people traveling from the parking lot to the church can use the crosswalk across Spring Avenue.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the DTE access in that one corner, southeast corner, is there a structure there, or is that under the asphalt?
There's no structure there. It's under the asphalt. So the 3 parking spaces just east of the park were included, and I can let the applicant go into more detail about this. These spaces are intended to be used in association with the drive-through prayer. And the area between the proposed park and the east property line was not wide enough to allow for a different configuration of parking spaces. So those spaces were originally proposed in a different configuration, but a vehicle couldn't enter or exit those spaces. So they've been moved so that they are viable spaces now. And, they could extend the lawn area to that corner without an impact to the utility easement.
Right, right. Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Laura. We'll have the applicant come up.
Dan Deemer. Yeah, it's just, I brought some, we surveyed the neighborhoods and got some names in the neighborhoods. It's kind of was unanimous that a lot of the neighborhood did want this prayer tent, a prayer pavilion. Yeah, I don't know if you have any questions. We did a lot of work on it, but I could talk on it.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Could you just describe how this is operated? Do people park and get out, or do they, it says drive-through prayer, so I'm not familiar with that term.
They can do either. A lot of times people will do whatever they kind of want. They'll drive in and park and walk up, or they'll drive up, roll the window down. We started a lot of this during COVID because we wanted to still outreach. People wanted to talk and pray. And so we said, how can we do this with a distance, right? And so at the time, we'd stay away from the cars, away from people, but they'd come up and we'd talk to them, pray with them, and counsel, or whatever, they wanted. So then they'd park or they could pull up. We call it a drive-through so people can stay in their cars at that time. And still, it's very popular.
And they then interact with somebody?
Right.
They're not just praying by themselves, but they're interacting
No,
with...
they can, right, when we're not there, but the 4 hours during the week, 2 hours on Tuesday, 2 hours on Thursday, and Tuesday and Thursday, yeah, 2 people will go up and talk to them. They can
So
pull.
this will operate about 4 hours a week?
4 hours a week, but then there's the prayer walk, the walk, and then they can use that, and then also, yeah, just use it as a park in general, just to meditate. We'll have benches and all kinds of,
Yeah.
yeah.
And do you have a sense of how many people use this?
I believe that we did the numbers, crunched them, and then divided it. It's about maybe, 4 to 5, did you say?
4 to 5 people each.
In that 2-hour period. Not a lot. It's
Okay.
not like Grand Central Station, and, we hope it would be, right? But, no, it's maybe 4 or 5
Okay.
cars or so.
Okay.
With the southeast corner where the DTE easement is, would you consider extending the grass to that corner so there's not a separate area of pavement left?
I think that's reasonable. I think we can do that. We were just concerned, we didn't want to kind of extend the walkway and everything through there, is because if there's access to the manholes, they just tear it up. Grass, they'll replace in kind, I think, when they're done. So I think that's reasonable. We would definitely do that.
Kind of have it in the middle to break it up for walkers, so it's not, taking up the whole area. It kind of breaks it up. But are you saying to leave the left side and go all the way to the end? Make it even a little larger?
We're just going to put grass right here, Dan.
Oh, okay.
think
Yeah,
that's-
yeah.
Yeah, just put grass in front of those 3 spaces, just south of those 3 spaces on the east side of the parking lot, so that
Yeah,
it's
that's,
not a stranded section of pavement. And it sort of activates that corner a little bit more.
as long as DTE, they're okay.
Also added a condition for consideration about connecting those parking spaces through a walk to the path, just to bring, if individuals park there trying to avoid them walking into the vehicular travel lane, and whether there's opportunities, if it's grass, and then building a walkway connecting the spaces to the prayer walk.
I have a question. So in your elevations, you have a picture of like a sample of what you're going for, and then in the elevations, there's that like, it looks like a room.
Right.
What, could you describe what that will be used for?
Yeah, that's really just storage for the tents and chairs and anything that we would be using while we're out there. Right now, it's all in the back of a van for those 2 times a week that it's all brought out when we set up a tent. So it was, the intent for that was just to provide a space for storage to assist with the, when we're sitting out there using the park space.
But if the park space and pavilion were approved, would you be using tents?
I think we're going to want to provide storage for whether we have tables under the pavilion or, I mean, the trash, we're going to have a trash can out there, so we're going to have supplies, I think, you know, for that kind of thing. Maybe the landscaping company will need to use it. So we're really just, trying to provide a
Just storage? Okay.
space to store things that isn't in the church that we have to go back. There's a garage on the other side of the church that has that stuff in it right now, so.
Okay. And then I'm wondering if you all consider doing this from your existing parking lot on the other property?
We did, and the fact that it's located on the north side of the church, there's the visibility on Leonard is not there. There's a lot of the people that stop are foot traffic, and they're walking, you know, up to the businesses at Leonard and down to the west. So it's always been done out in that parking lot, and really, I just want to confirm or let you know that, you know, we've intentionally located, well, on the other image where it's on the east side of the lot, to pull it away from the church in itself and more into the neighborhood. It's really a space for the community. I mean, you can hear we do want to utilize it a couple times a week, but really this is for the community and a green space taking up an underutilized asphalt parking lot, of which we use about half of it. So that's kind of why we moved it down along Leonard to the east, was to kind of create that buffer between the existing church. And we just felt, you know, we did talk about that, and we just didn't feel, then we're kind of like, we're huddled back into a little corner, and the traffic wouldn't be there, and we just wouldn't be able to engage and be out where people can see us.
Okay.
I think also on that road is a really nice road. We got all the jail system. Guys will come out and they'll come to us. They walk that way, and so many times, you know, people will come for help, and then afterwards, when we're done after the 2 hours, I'll drive them someplace, or we'll, you know, it's a place. If it's back in there, nobody's gonna see it. You know, nobody will see it. And, it's just good traffic and, helping people out.
I drove past this, the drive-through prayer center a couple of years ago. Saw the cones up, and that was really interesting. What you're doing now is a real good use of space for all this excess parking that you have right now. I may have missed this earlier, but what is the purpose of the pavilion other than the storage for the tents and chairs? But what?
Yeah, so weather, rain, wind, and the tent can only get staked into the grass. So we've got these boots with concrete or with bricks in them to try to hold that down. And there's been times where it's blown across the parking lot, and it's really just to provide protection and shelter in weather events. And then that will also, Laura mentioned uses associated with church. So there would be things like Vacation Bible School, or we would maybe do a Sunday service out there.
Flower sale,
All
all kinds of stuff.
There's a
Yeah.
couple.
There's a lot of stuff we do.
Things like that that would be nice to have shelter from the elements.
Thank you.
The drawings appear to me that the pavilion is on like pylons or, so it's raised up, is that?
It's not.
Oh,
So
okay,
those
Yeah, I
pictures,
I
those are
didn't,
below grade.
okay.
Sorry.
I thought maybe, but I just thought I'd ask.
It's just a concrete slab, and then
Okay.
the posts are set on top of there's a bracket that
Okay,
anchors into the,
thank you.
sorry about,
No,
it is confusing.
One of the letters we received referred to like traffic and crash issues, and so I did look up the history there, and it appears that there have been 15 or so crashes in this area, mostly concentrated at the Diamond intersection, a few of them with injuries, no fatalities. But I was just wondering how your circulation here like may or may not contribute, or if whether you've had issues with kind of the way the traffic flows or near misses for people. Just speak to this development's engagement with traffic on Leonard, please.
Yeah, I think that the letter that I saw, it was concentrated at Leonard and Fuller, which is 2.5 blocks away from this. I think you're from Diamond, it will back up about to the church. So I don't think there's ever really cars sitting in front of this parking lot per se from either direction. And the primary use, again, is a parking lot, and the circulation is provided. There's 3 curb cuts. A lot of the times, people enter off of the side cuts and not just Leonard, because they'll kind of see it going by and then read the signs that are in the grass and then kind of come and circle back in. So I think all of the cuts are available for ingress, and the amount of people that are coming in, it's just like we mentioned during these times. I mean, otherwise people are coming in and parking, right? And then, yeah, I don't know, is there any other follow-up to that?
Yeah, I guess that leads me to my next question about the potential conflict between people coming around from the Diamond side, coming down, conflicting with the people turning in from Leonard. Like, do you see what I'm talking about? If you look at the circulation patterns, you have your arrows going
Oh, the
around
one
to
off
there,
Burke?
but then, the one to the east of the parking lot, or west of the parking lot.
Yeah. So.
Maybe I didn't get the street right, but.
Yeah, so the intention there is like Laura mentioned, the circulation's been flipped and we're going the other way. So that one way would go right out, and we have one way only for entering traffic. I think another part of that would be a yield sign at the back side of where we have a do not enter at the one way, and, yield oncoming traffic if needed. We could even add some additional parking lot graphics to make sure that, this lane, if you're exiting, is going straight out to that cut, and if you're coming in, you're going to the right, and making sure that. But I think signage and the graphics, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of cross traffic that happens.
Thank you, yeah. Any other questions for the applicant? Go ahead.
So you said you use about half of the parking lot.
Correct.
And so I'm curious about your choice to develop, or to make if this is for the community, I'm curious about your choice to have such a small area be dedicated for the community. Because, like, say this just extended and took over the rest of that portion of the parking lot. So it extended north and east, you would lose at most 12 parking spaces. So you have a ton of drive lane for very few parking spaces. And then also, like, if it's for the community, the scale, could you speak to that, please?
Yeah, I think in order to maintain the circulation and primary use of the lot, if we were to cut that whole side off, I guess we could modify that, but I think we're we're intending those spaces, I mean, for people that are using the park, right, that aren't coming to church, they would be parking in those spaces on the west side, on the east side. And then we even kind of have that buffer of striping there that would provide a little bit of pedestrian access, circulation through there to get to the park. But, yeah, I think we wanted to maintain, I mean, the parking, the way we've calced it out, we've got about 11 extra at this point, and I just think of like at a funeral, it does get utilized fully, and then it even comes down the street. So I think we still wanted to maintain a level of the primary use as the parking lot. And
Here's a laser pointer if you
Oh.
need it, so you can.
Thank you.
okay, yeah, I don't know, did that help?
One of the big things is like funerals, weddings, things like that. The congregation was very worried about that. That you get a lot of cars, take up the street and all that stuff. This is bigger than what we really anticipated in the beginning, but we thought this is great. It's a great opportunity to make it a more of a park, people to hang out and meditate and just enjoy. And so, it's not. We didn't want to limit the funerals and weddings and different things, but in the same token, we want a nice, good size for people to enjoy, this, That's the thought process.
I think
Right.
that point, it's nice to see some greening in place of asphalt, and that is a big, long space. I wondered why, and you talked about, if you could go to the slide that shows the pavilion, the slide that shows the outline. You talked about extending that green space, as was discussed by another commissioner. Those 3 spots that are for parking, I wonder if those could be eliminated. They seem ancillary in terms of need, and it's just kind of hanging out there.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. We have a plan. This is about option 8 or 9 as we have been working through it.
It's true.
So I think
I can only imagine.
That's true.
we had this entire corner sectioned off, but when we saw the amount of work that was going on, because this was a couple years back, and then as we progressed, we were going to develop that whole corner. To your point, and increasing that. But when we saw what was going on with the DTA easement, it was like, they have access to do whatever they want. So that's why we pulled the parking lot, or the park back. Kind of were like, okay, can we utilize this for maybe a couple spots? And like Laura mentioned, like we had them one way, that didn't work. This is kind of a half a dozen, just kind of to utilize some of that. So I think, in addition to just adding grass here, obviously we'd have to get approval from the congregation and such, but extending that over to the corner and just making sure that.
I'm sorry, I know that you're looking back. Could you try to talk into the microphone, though? Thanks, so
Sorry.
we can capture it.
Yep, okay. So yeah, I think that's, if we could extend that grass, get rid of those 3 spots, and just make sure that the trail stays outboard of where the easement lies, so that the only disturbance would be to lawn. So, yeah, those spaces aren't needed, and I think that would help satisfy the concerns that were just raised.
I guess I have one other question. Is the curb cut on Burke completely necessary? Like, would it be possible to eliminate one of the curb cuts if?
Well, I don't know that, would it be possible to, we wouldn't want to go through that expense, I guess, of removing it. And it would help, it still provides access into that one way from that end, to relieve any, I guess, from the other 2. If that's something you'd like us to consider, we would.
I was just, I guess, more curious if it had been considered, given I guess,
Hasn't.
neighbor traffic concerns and things like that. And
Sure,
if the parking lot's not that busy,
right.
generally, did it really need 3 curb cuts? But
You'd have to go into Leonard then, and go into other traffic, and try and eliminate, have a flow, right? Have a flow coming in from all different areas, and it's set up for that, everybody's used to it. And if you were to take that away, then they'd have to go into other traffic, and let it just create more havoc. But they use it all. They use all 3. All 3 get used quite a bit.
I think we'd probably want our traffic safety engineers to evaluate, if curb cuts were going to be closed, which one would be the ideal. And I'm not sure that conversation took place, especially considering the scale of improvement and investment that's being made relative to the
yeah, that's fine.
parcel size.
I don't want to add a lot of extra expense to it either, so just.
I guess maybe I know the answer to this because of the comment just about expense, but there's a fair bit of asphalt here now that's just simply crosshatched, that's not intended to be driven on or parked upon. And if this were a new parking lot, right, we'd want to see landscape in those areas. And in addition, I think it would, particularly around the area to the north of the new park, I don't know how, I mean, traffic won't follow the traffic lines there unless there are a lot of cars in the lot or people moving about, right? They're just going to cut across there. And I guess I would just ask to give consideration to tearing out some of that asphalt that's unnecessary and replacing it with something permeable just from a environmental and heat island effect aspect. I think it would be a benefit to the community. Yeah, I understand there's a little bit of expense with that and maybe a little additional maintenance, but it would be nice to see some more greenery in the lot itself, right?
Yeah, I think to your point on the west side of the lot, if you want to switch over there real quick, there's a couple in the corner, like you say, that are striped out like that. I think that those would be.
Yeah, that's what I was.
We could possibly.
That's what I was looking at. I think that would.
Some of that.
Yep.
But again, like you say, cost-wise, we would just have to go back to review with everyone.
And then related to the ADA ramp.
Yes.
So that walkway
Yes.
just basically leads into the street with
So
nothing on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this wasn't initially intended to connect. There's a door here at the corner. The original entry has a door from each direction. There's a stair here. So I think in about 2002, cover at a door was added and a cover put in here for ADA accessibility. And the elevator was added, so now the accessible route comes in underneath this canopy over to an elevator. Initially, back in the 60s, whenever this was developed, I think this was to just help people come right across to, and I don't know if this had been, this area I think was all up, redone when that cover was put on the church. So I think initially it was intended to connect to this door, and because it's a stop at a curb, and the way we rerouted the traffic.
I'm sorry. I need you to turn
I'm doing
around.
that again, aren't I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can see the cursor too.
So anyway, yeah, I think initially that was a access path through to that corner. Since we've relayed out the lot and we're trying to maintain the access aisle between two spaces, I tried to align it with that sidewalk so that we would be able to utilize that as an accessible route to the across to the existing entry. Right now, the spaces are actually up over here, and people come down the curb cut and across. So I think this actually helps with getting the spaces to a dedicated route that would come down and across, rather than coming through as is done now.
I know from personal experience that if they were to use the driveway, it gets real icy, it gets compacted with cars, and that's easy for them to maintain and keep that opened. It gets used a lot. I see a lot of people using it, the handicap section.
No, I wouldn't suggest that people try to use the driveway. I guess I am a little concerned about people just going into the street instead of using like the designated crosswalk. But are there not ramps at that intersection?
I think there are.
Okay.
Using the one at Leonard, you're saying?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to direct people down and around and get rid of that, I'm doing it again.
Sorry.
And get rid of that, I mean.
Maybe
you
just
don't have
something,
to touch that and just
Okay.
put signage that says
right.
accessible route, come around that way.
Right. Maybe that's something for the professionals to look at in the city, yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, have a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, I will open the public hearing. If you're here on this case and want to share some thoughts with us, head up to the microphone, introduce yourself, and address comments to the commission. All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Okay. All right, commissioners, thoughts here?
I used to go to school right just north of here on Page and Spring and would pass this parking lot riding my bike all the time, and it's been a big old boring parking lot for my whole life. So I like this plan. I think there are some tweaks that can be done, like the grass by the easement, but I feel like it does soften this corner a lot more and does add some vitality to the neighborhood. So yeah, I appreciate it.
I agree. When I drove by it, and just to refresh my memory, it's just nothing about it is inviting, other than looking for a place to park. And so the more green you can add to it, particularly if it isn't used, I think it's good for the church and the neighborhood. So, and maybe at further junctures in your journeys, you might add more.
I'm in support as well. Furthermore, I would be in support of removing the 3 parking spaces and extending the green space to the end of the lot.
No, I think, overall, I'm in support. I think, many church parking lots are underutilized, so this is a great use for it. I think ideally we would see additional uses, especially if the parking lot is only used in half the time and it's only for a couple of hours a week. But that's not what's before us today. So, but I can support what's here.
Yeah, my one overarching concern about this is the alignment with the ASP for this to be a compact neighborhood, like in terms of additional housing or denser development on this corridor, especially with the access to transit. So in terms of like a higher and best use, but again, as you said, that's not in front of us either. So I do appreciate some level of activation of this and extension of that for use by the community. I too would like to see the green go all the way to the corner there and those spaces taken out if possible, and then additional permeable areas as well if possible. And then, for traffic safety to review both circulation and that ADA ramp placement and route would be good. I just don't want us to be directing folks into the street with no clear path to go and no indication for drivers that they need to be looking out for folks going across that street too, to address some of this traffic safety concerns. Anyone else? Would someone like to make a motion or be willing to make a motion?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Commission approves the special land use and site plan review request to construct a 5,100 square foot prayer park with a 700 square foot open air pavilion in an existing surface parking lot to facilitate outdoor religious uses at 1041 Leonard Street Northeast for the following reasons. 1, the proposed use will be consistent with the purpose and intent of the master plan and zoning ordinance, including the zone district, because the proposed use will support the recommendation of the community master plan to minimize the impact of surface parking lots by reducing the square footage of impervious area, be consistent with the land uses identified for a compact neighborhood, which include religious institutions along major streets and small parks providing natural open space for recreation. Number 2, the proposed use will meet the site plan review standards of section 5.12.08.e because the pavilion and park are provided with adequate means of ingress and egress by public streets and walkways. All elements of the site design are harmoniously and efficiently organized in relation to the size and type of lot, character of the neighborhood and adjoining property, and the type, size, and proportions of the structures. The proposed use will be comparable, harmonious, and appropriate with the character and uses of the neighborhood, adjacent properties, and the natural environment because religious uses such as drive-through prayer and fundraising activities have already been operating in the parking lot without formal approval. The proposed park and pavilion will be maintained and available for public use. Potentially adverse effects arising from the proposed use will be minimized because the pavilion structure setback is consistent with the established development pattern of surrounding properties. The additional green space and landscaping will reduce the impervious area of the property. Landscaping will be provided to screen the parking lot from adjacent residential property to the north. The proposed use will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to existing or future uses or to the public welfare by reason of excessive traffic, smoke odors, glare, or visual clutter because no outdoor live entertainment, outdoor cooking, or late evening activities will be conducted. The proposed use will not adversely affect the walkability of the neighborhood, impair pedestrian circulation patterns, disrupt the continuity of the urban street wall, or otherwise hinder the creation of a pedestrian-oriented environment because the proposed park and pavilion are intended to be an amenity to the surrounding neighborhood. The parking lot has been designed to accommodate safe and efficient vehicular circulation. 5B, the proposed use will not be detrimental to the financial stability or economic welfare of the city because the use is not anticipated to create nuisances that will require additional city services. Be it further resolved that the following conditions shall apply to this approval. Standard conditions set A approvals. 1, that the application and plans submitted by the applicant and signed, dated, and stamped by the planning director shall constitute the approved plans, except if plan elements do not meet ordinance requirements and/or as amended in this resolution. That the use shall operate according to the application and per testimony as recorded in the Planning Commission minutes. 3, that this approval does not include any proposed signs, and any future signs shall be subject to the requirements of Article 15 of the ordinance and permits received prior to installation. That a land use development services permit, building permit, and all other required permits be obtained from the City of Grand Rapids prior to the construction, demolition, or operation. That any expansion of the approved special land use requires an additional special land use review and approval of the Planning Commission. I suspect we're going to add something to that. Okay. That the proposed use will comply with all other applicable city ordinances and policies and all state laws. That this approval shall take effect 16 calendar days after the date of the Planning Commission's decision. That the use is approved as associated with the religious institution at 1027 Leonard Street Northeast. That outdoor live entertainment or outdoor cooking are not included as part of this approval. Safe and well-defined pedestrian passage from the 3 parking spaces east of the park to the pavilion shall be provided. That the applicant work with staff to ensure that CMU material used for the walls and benches meet minimum standards as a durable and high-quality material. That the fiber cement siding shall be used on the exterior of the pavilion. And I think we want to add to that, and sometimes our wonderful director comes up with the language.
Yeah, my suggestion was to actually strike number 4, because in lieu, what I heard was the agreement to extend the park green space / lawn to be extended to the east property line, which would effectively eliminate those 3 spaces.
Approved.
And then the additional condition is that the proposed ADA ramp on Spring Avenue be reviewed by Traffic Safety and Engineering Department. And the Engineering Department, sorry.
Approved. Are we not adding that it would extend to, the park would extend? Okay.
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. Yes, that was
Okay.
the first one to
Okay.
strike number 4 that was red.
Oh,
And
I got
then instead state that the park green space / lawn be extended to the east property line.
Okay, yep, that's what I thought.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and support. Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Arlen was the second.
Oh, no, it was Paul.
I lied. Sorry, I heard it was Arlen. It's Paul.
All right. Okay, go, thank you so much.
Very much, everyone.
All right. Let's move to our next case, 540 Russwood Street Northeast, and Avery will walk us through this.
The next item on the agenda is a request to construct a new 3,500 square foot building addition at 540 Russwood Street Northeast. The 2024 Community Master Plan designates this area as compact neighborhood, which consists of housing, K-12 schools, and other similar civic uses. This subject parcel is located in and surrounded by the MCN LDR Zone District. And this request is before you today as educational uses as well as their expansions require special land use approval within this zone district. North Point Christian Schools have operated an elementary school and preschool from this 6.7 acre parcel since 1973. The parcel is located between College and Sinclair, just south of Russwood. And the site is improved with a 36,000 square foot, single-story masonry building. There are paved drives, 2 surface parking lots, and a playground area. In 2022, the Planning Commission approved this 7,600 square foot building addition that's located approximately 25 feet south of the main building, as well as approval to expand the existing parking lot on the site. The structure that is to be added and is requested for you today will be added onto the southern portion of the existing building expansion. This expansion will be, again, 3,500 square feet and will include 2 new classrooms. The structure will match the existing building with a blend of masonry, glass, shingle roof, and siding that will complement the existing school building and nearby residential homes. The original building addition is located 60.5 feet from the property line along College Avenue, and the proposed addition will align with that facade. However, due to the curvature of College Avenue, the new building addition will be placed closer to that lot line at about 51.8 feet, which is still within the required setback limit. It is also important for me to note that the applicant has suggested that the proposed addition is not anticipated to increase student enrollment or staff demands, but rather provide additional classroom space to support nature and STEAM programming to enhance learning opportunities for the current students at the Russwood campus. However, a similar testimony was provided for the building addition that was before the Planning Commission in 2022, and the student enrollment at that time was 440 students, and today there are approximately 600 students that attend this campus. So I would just ask the Planning Commission to further discuss this topic with the applicant. Relative to natural features on the site, the image on your screen shows this area with some steep slopes, which are defined as a grade of 20% or greater. I will note that these slopes are not natural to the site and were likely created for the construction of the main school building. The location of the original building addition shown here was selected in this area for its minimal impact to the topography of the site and the site circulation. The area of steep slope on the site is roughly 2,100 square feet, shown in the yellow, and the Planning Commission or staff can allow an encroachment into steep slopes that has a combined area of less than 10,000 square feet. In this case, shown in orange, the applicant is proposing to encroach into the steep slopes by approximately 1,600 square feet, which meets the criteria for a departure and can be done so administratively. I would like to also add that with the grade change that's present, with College Avenue shown here being at a higher grade than the building addition where it currently is and where the addition will be in the future, that the grade change provides a sort of buffer where the building almost blends in here and you can really only see the upper portion of the building. Relative to parking, there are 66 on-site parking spaces, and per the applicant's testimony, there's an average demand of 56 parking spaces for staff. The original building addition required 14 additional parking spaces to be provided, and at the time, a deficiency of 4 parking spaces was waived at an administrative level. The proposed addition today requires 6 additional parking spaces to be added, and given that the on-site parking count exceeds the reported parking need and is a reduction of less than 50%, the deficient 6 parking spaces associated with this new building addition can be waived at the administrative level during the permitting process, should the Planning Commission approve this request today. However, I would also like to note that nearby residents have concerns regarding the abundant use of on-street parking during school hours. And an open house was held on August 19th, 2025 to answer some questions and solicitate neighborhood feedback on the proposed development, in which case 22 people signed in on a contact sheet that was provided. And we received many letters of concern, and people that attended the open house also echoed similar concerns relative to traffic congestion, a lack of on-site parking related to drop-off and pickup hours and during school events, parking in non-parking zones, and speeding in the area just in general. The city's mobile GR department has not received any formal complaints. However, due to the neighbors' testimony of these issues, we would like to suggest a condition of approval that the applicant work with a traffic engineer to evaluate the existing neighborhood traffic, identify any causes of this traffic, and provide recommendations to alleviate any issues with a traffic management plan, and that this plan be submitted to Mobile GR prior to the submission of a LUDS permit. There has been one resident that has submitted a letter of support outlining the school's efforts to enhance educational opportunities for students. And overall, the key considerations before you today are the impact of the proposed use relative to parking and traffic concerns on the property and for nearby residents, the impact of the development on the natural features on the site, and whether the proposed setback along College Avenue is appropriate given the existing location of the building addition that they will be adding on to. Does the Planning Commission have any questions for me?
Can you please confirm that, I believe I heard you say it, I just want to make sure, that in 2022, per testimony, there would be no increase in the number of students at the school, and since then, there's an increase of 25 students per classroom that was added,
Yep, so,
that matches that,
yeah.
went from 450 to 600.
Yep, in 2022, the testimony was 440 students on campus, and today they're back with 600 students.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Avery? Go ahead.
Quick one. In some of the packet images, it seemed to be there was a public school portion that was overlaid in some of the images. Is this all Christian, or is there like a dual?
Christian, yep,
Okay.
so not a public school.
Got it. Okay.
Others? Okay, thank you, Avery. We'll have the applicant come up and add some information for us.
Thank you. My name's Rob Behrens. I'm with Naderveld, civil engineer. I'm also here with Todd Talsma, the head of schools, and Karen Vandenberg, who is the elementary principal and ground zero for all things related to neighbors. So I'm going to give a brief comments on the site plan, then let Karen address some of the concerns. So yes, the 3,500 square foot addition is to the south side of what we constructed in 2022. The setback requirement is 25 feet along College, and yes, the existing building was 60.5 feet, and this new addition at the closest corner is 51.8, so still more than twice the required setback. It'll, as was mentioned, be the similar building design. Roof line will be extended. As an aside, if this was approved and we went through the permit process, the thought would be to add these rooms starting the day after school in 2026, because we can't be disrupting classes. But that's an assumption that things are approved. The addition does not require any new sanitary sewer, any new water main. We do have some private storm sewer leaching basins that have to be, and roof drains that have to be rerouted, but no city utilities are impacted. There's one play structure that gets relocated on site. And I'm going to let Karen address the use space and maybe some of the enrollment numbers that were addressed. But as education has changed at younger and younger ages, science, technology, engineering, math, and arts have become something that is more and more desired at younger and younger grades. So to keep up with what is required, that's the purpose of this space. It's going to be a collaborative space so that we can do a better job of training people, younger kids, before they get to the middle school, high school ages. We did have the meeting like 4 days before school started. So then first day of school, first week of school, although the parents want to bring their kids in for the first days. Congestion has been talked about for the last 20 years. Karen, I believe, has been on site for maybe 17 years. So she's been through the thick and the thin of enrollment numbers and had many interactions with neighbors, and that's what we heard. parents that are inconsiderate, traffic going too fast and don't park in front of our driveways. There's been a lot of time and effort put in by our staff and having extra people putting some signs out. I think it's improved, maybe not perfectly, but I'll let Karen address that in the space needs and things like that, and then we'll answer any questions.
Hi, I'm Karen Vanderberg, principal at the preschool and elementary for North Point Christian. It's my privilege to be here with all these neighbors who I get to talk to at various times. And I learned a lot at the neighborhood meeting because getting a random email every year or couple years of somebody saying something that isn't going well with traffic is very different than having a group of people around you saying, no, this really is a problem for us daily, and we want to help solve it. So that evening brought about some really good brainstorming that did help me as a leader in the building say, okay, I've done face-to-face conversations, I've done cones, I've done no turning left out of the back parking lot, but there's more that needs to be done. So there are a variety of things that we addressed. I first want to be able to say, while our enrollment is 615, there are not 615 students that meet on our campus daily. On Mondays, we have 476. On Tuesdays, we have 467. Wednesday, again, 476. Thursday, again, 467. And Friday is 503. So really, the difference is not as vast as it seems when we look back at what was happening just a few short years ago, as all Christian schools were experiencing a different bounce back after all things COVID. So we do have that many students. We have done some strategic things to deal with traffic to get those students to school safely and in an enjoyable manner and try to keep things peaceful. We have increased our shuttle usage. So in the morning, we have about 75 students who are coming to us from our other campus over on Leonard and the Beltline. So that eliminates some traffic coming into us. And at the end of the day, we have 75 to 100 students who then ride the shuttle back to that other campus. So we are not having a drive-through pickup line for those students. We are encouraging carpool lines. On other days of the week, we're having anywhere from 80 to 105 students on the shuttle. It varies daily, but that does help cut down on our car line time. And that's strategic. And before and after school care is also part of what we do. And that helps minimize some of the after school traffic because parents can come at a later time. If they don't want to wait in the pickup line, they can pick up their child at 3:45 or 4 o'clock if they're still working. And part of that is just as a service to our families as well. So that's we have 90 to 100 students regularly in that after school care. So we are actually exiting anywhere from 259 to 333 students at the end of the day through our pickup line for people who park or wait in line. I encourage families to have community. That's one thing that we've learned over the last handful of years is that we need each other and we want to be able to utilize our playground as a place to gather, whether it's for the community or for our families. And so we do have families who park and then stay and play and talk and get together with one another. So if there's question as to why people are parked after that pickup time, there are some families who utilize our playground area for about a half an hour after school, and then our after school care uses that space and they can no longer be in that space. We choose to have the playground open because I want that to be a benefit to the community. I want a playground. I want that sledding hill to be used in the off hours and on the weekends. I have friends who live down by Riverside Park and they call our playground the Blue Playground, and they will walk to our playground to use our playground, and that makes my heart so happy. So I want that to be a space that's utilized for all. That's part of why our basketball court is larger and has lots of hoops so that kids of all ages can enjoy them. We just added some picnic tables to help encourage families to be able to use that space. We have a nature area out back because we do want our students to be connected with nature, even though we're in closer to an urban setting. We've been working some with Cornerstone Science Education on what it looks like to do urban nature education. As we've been revisiting our vision plan over the last 3 to 4 years, I believe it's been, part of our goal has been to refine what we're looking to do, especially at the elementary level, to deepen our education rather than get larger. The board conversations and the vision planning teams have all said we like the size that we are as a district. We don't want to get larger. It changes our culture. We have transplanted our hybrid program to the Frontline Community Church on Plainfield, so we have 75 students of those 615 that do not meet on our campus at all. They are there at the Frontline location, so they got to experience all of the gas fun last week. So we are being mindful of enrollment numbers. We continue to explore options of transplanting a portion of our student body to our other campus, actually. They're therefore giving us more space to thrive and move out of some of our smaller classroom spaces and provide, again, meeting spaces for parents and all that good stuff. But this particular space came out of the conversations of the deepening of education that we need to be able to do. And I don't like space to be an obstacle. And so we got creative in how we could move forward with our nature education, infusing it into different classrooms, taking kids outside. So we do have a nature education teacher who is also a third grade teacher right now because the nature education is not a full-time role for her. So we are growing that. First, we grew it by her educating teachers, and then this year we have pulled her out part of the time in her afternoon teaching hours to teach in second grade, to add a nature education special. And then our goal is to grow that grade by grade so that we have that intentional connection to nature, which has social, emotional, academic, all kinds of benefits of being in nature and learning more about the world around us. We also have shifted from curriculum science instruction to STEM instruction, and that's in collaboration with our art teacher. So that's where the STEAM portion comes in. There's a lot of reasoning for that. Part of it is 10 years ago, we were teaching kids how to click and drag, and now we're teaching them how to put devices away and to work together and to problem solve and think deeper. So that's the direction that we've moved. We have a STEM teacher. She pushes into classrooms. It does provide some obstacles. When you're trying to do a collaborative project, you cannot work with toothpicks and expect your tower to hold together when it has to be loaded back onto a rolling cart and pushed down the hallway. So we've worked with it, we'll make it work, but we also dream, what if? What if we had the space where we didn't have to roll everything away on a cart? We could have everything located right there. Our robotics program has grown. We have 3 robotics teams at our elementary level for the 4th and 5th graders. It's been so exciting to see them be inspired to build, create, do all the public speaking that comes with robotics as a sport, really. Even though it's an after-school club, it's very much a part of what we're doing academically. So our robotics would also be centered in that area. And right now, for any academic events, such as a Science Expo, which we have not done yet because of space considerations, we need to have an area where we can open up and invite parents in to walk through, see science projects and all of that. And right now, the only large space that we have for something like that is the gymnasium. And I don't want to send the message to students or to the PE teacher that physical activity is not important, because it is. It's a mental health subject. So that's really the core of our desire behind that project. As we had that neighborhood meeting right before school started, and we got really some great feedback and some brainstorming time at the end with those who were willing to stay and say, hey, what if you didn't allow people to turn left into the parking lot? And that really has been the biggest improvement. We do have a rerouting of traffic coming from Sly onto St. Clair, and they can only turn right. And we have a staff member out there. He's a former fire chief, and so he is the perfect person to stand there and not let anyone turn left from Sinclair into the parking lot. And we have seen vast improvement in our time frame. We are consistently out of there. School gets done at 3 o'clock. We are done with Carline by 3:08. Yesterday, we were done by 3:02 because it's Grandparents' Week. We've worked to be considerate with things like Grandparents' Week. It's now Grandparents' Week, not Grandparents' Day, because of the congestion with traffic, as well as congestion within the building, because we do get a great turnout. So we have spread it out so that we have various grade levels in the morning or the afternoon throughout the week. We as a staff then park in our soccer field and give up a portion of the field so that we can leave the streets, the public streets, in a better, less congested state for that week. So this week we've experienced that, and grandparents take their kids home, and we're done by 3:02. It's wonderful. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. So one question, I just want to confirm that the additional classrooms that you're talking about are now going to be transitioned to just specials classrooms, like classrooms for what are now the specials, instead of having people go in and out of individual classrooms for that
Yes,
space.
instead of the teacher traveling to the classrooms,
Yep.
the students will travel to the teacher.
Fantastic. And then, this isn't really, well, I guess it is a question, but have y'all ever considered applying for a Safe Routes to School planning grant?
Don't even know what that is. so
Well,
no.
you're eligible, and it's a 100% funded planning grant process, federal and state funded, and with school buy-in and community, they will help you, they can help you figure out additional safety measures that y'all could put in place. So highly recommend. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Love that.
others?
I drove through yesterday and did see that it was Grandparents' Week and that there were cars parked on the grass.
That's
And
not
I had wondered even before, I lived in that neighborhood for a while, but I had wondered why the requirement, and maybe our staff can help me with this, or you, that you don't consider parents or people coming in and out besides just the amount of staff that you have for parking. And because at least 100 years ago when my kids were in school, people were coming in and out
Right.
during the day, whether it was to see their kid do this or to help out in the classroom.
Yeah.
So I was surprised that, and could see where parking would become it. So now that you've said that that was a soccer field, I can see why you might not want to asphalt it, huh?
Right, yes. I think we'd have a few, specifically third and fourth grade boys, that would be very upset with us.
So I guess my question is it then the only parking available for in and out parking during the day is along the curbs? It sounds like there's no extra parking for
So-
visitors.
What we've done is we've designated that front parking lot for in and out visitors and parents with young children or people who need to utilize our 3 handicap spaces that are up in that front parking lot. And we, as an office staff, do park either in the back lot or along on the public parking areas on the street. Yeah.
So
that
who
that
is
lot's
parking on the public streets, or on the streets then? If
So-
not visitors, it's teachers or?
Sometimes it's teachers because that's closer to the entrance that they utilize, and sometimes it's office staff so that we can keep that front parking lot clear. For instance, I travel back and forth between campuses. I travel to our hybrid location on Plainfield as well as our admin building regularly throughout the week. And so for me, that's a matter of just time management and being able to get to my car quickly versus going to the back lot. So that's just how we've arranged it so that we're considerate of the people visiting. Last week, there were some people working across the street on a home that was just purchased, and we noticed that one of the contractors was parked illegally on the other side, and we didn't want him to get a ticket. So we walked across and said, hey, just a heads up, there has been more proactive policing, which we are all in favor of, but we don't want you to get a ticket. You can come utilize our front parking parking lot during that space in time. So.
Is there, when, if I can ask staff, when you're figuring out parking need for a school, is it just staff-based, or are there any accommodations for in and out visitors or things like that?
It's based on the size of the school, and so it's one space for every 1,000 square feet for like the one space for every 1,000 square feet, plus one space per classroom, auditorium, and office use. So it's not, the ordinance isn't tied to the number of staff or student enrollment, it's the physical space.
Okay.
Now, certainly, some of those details could factor into a special land use decision in terms of how the space is used in the context of where the school is located within the community. So it's not that the Planning Commission, has to grant waivers or can't require alternative solutions, but the ordinance base is the size of the school.
I have the numbers that you gave for the enrollment day by day.
Yes.
What is the building enrollment for students? Do you have that? How many
What do
students
you-
are actually in the building?
Yes, the number of students that are in the building that day are 476, 467, 476, 467, and 503, including preschoolers, some of whom leave halfway through the day.
And is this the high watermark for enrollment at North Point Elementary? Or
Last year, we had maybe a dozen more in enrollment. It was slightly higher. Enrollment can ebb and flow depending on a lot of variables,
Okay.
including financial climate.
And then finally, the shuttle.
Yes.
So parents whose students use the shuttle would pick them up at the East Beltline
Yes.
campus?
Yep. Or the frontline location, depending on, there's a loop that they do. So our shuttle will go, I'm going to get this right, I'm going to get the loop right. Our shuttle goes from Frontline, actually. So in the afternoon, they start at the high school, they go to Frontline, they pick up students at our campus, and then they go back to, to the high school.
Thank you.
What is the maximum number that your school can accommodate in classrooms? Do you have a maximum classroom size
For sanity or for fire?
for profitability, maybe? I mean,
Yes.
you guys are
Yep.
taking tuition, right? So,
Yes.
do you
Yeah.
have a maximum number based on a maximum class size? I mean, I'm all in favor
Right.
of not having CART teachers, having that space, which is great. But
So we have some grade levels that are capped currently right now. In preschool, the number is 24 per class per day. The numbers are kind of complex as you look at it. Kindergarten is capped at 20 per class. First grade is 23 to 25 per class, and then second grade through fifth grade is 27 per class, but that also depends on needs within the class, the size of the classroom, because we have some classrooms that are smaller. For instance, we have 2 classrooms that are boutique size, and one of those is capped at 10 and the other is capped at 14. So numbers-wise, could we stuff more in if we wanted to? Yes, but I feel like we're at a good educational level right now. So I don't know fire code-wise what the maximum is. I'm guessing it's got to be close to where we are now. It might be closer to 700. I don't actually know. It's a good question. I don't have the answer.
I have one other question, just for clarity's sake. You talk about wanting to grow the nature program, so do you grow that with just the existing students then?
Yes. So what I want to do is I want to be able to infuse nature into every classroom. And we have been strategically hiring over the last few years teachers who in their interview, are talking about how they love God, love students, love their content. And when they say they love nature, I'm like, wahoo! So we've invited several of those people onto our team who want to more effectively infuse nature into their general ed teaching, but then also be able to partner with someone who specializes in that and then have a space to do it. It's very different to try to have your classroom with your bookshelves and your book baskets and all of the other things that you're doing, and to have a counter full of plants. So if we could have a space where we're doing planting, where we're monitoring light and soil and all of those things, coordinating with our STEM teacher, and we can keep those projects in a space where multiple classes can benefit from it, that's really our goal.
Thank you, that clarifies things. Appreciate it.
Any additional questions for the applicant now? Okay, we'll have you take a seat. Thank you so much. I'll open up the public hearing. If you're here on this case, please make your way to the microphone, state your name, and give us your comments. Come on up. And if there are several of you, feel free to queue. But reminder to address your comments to us and not to the applicants here.
Hello, my name is Alicia Pavona, and I live on the College cul-de-sac. So this proposal has raised considerable concern for us as a neighborhood. As a caring resident who values education, there is no room for this expansion. In 2021, we were assured the previous expansion was intended not to increase enrollment, but rather to create a dedicated space for their current programming. However, following this expansion, traffic patterns shifted, resulting in greater congestion throughout the neighborhood, especially during drop-off and pickup times. A review of the school's application for the current expansion reviewed something remarkable. The section regarding traffic impact was left entirely blank. Numerous calls and emails have been made to both the school and the district office, voicing worries about blocked streets and driveways as I attempt to take my own daughter to school. These issues heighten safety risks, create daily stress, and make the prospect of enduring yet another season of construction extremely daunting. Over the past 4 years, there has been little to no effort to address these traffic-related problems. Only now, with the announcement of yet another expansion, is action being considered. Streets immediately surrounding the school are now lined with signs. In officially designated no parking zone, 8 cones are placed in the street, remaining there during the school season. They are present before and after pickup hours, including evenings and weekends, preventing regular street cleaning and amplifying disruption. These are temporary solutions that lack sustainability. Traffic problems extend beyond the immediate school surroundings, spilling into the broader neighborhood. The normal flow of vehicles is routinely interrupted as parents enter and exit, further exacerbating congestion. The school was originally designed for students to walk, but today, with hundreds of parents driving their children to school, increasing enrollment and expansion have outgrown that vision. And this trend will only accelerate. With numerous concerns at hand, it is crucial to explore meaningful solutions. A group of dedicated neighbors recently came together to discuss possible responses, and we came up with a few ideas. Conduct a comprehensive traffic study. This is essential. Bus students in from the Leonard campus, which offers ample space for parking. It sounds like this is being done, but it sounds like it could be possible for this to be expanded even further. Implement staggered drop-off times. Consult other neighborhood schools to learn effective pickup and drop-off procedures. Actively participate in the Creston Neighborhood Association. Establish neighborhood liaisons to address concerns. And finally, promptly respond to issues raised by parents or by residents. Ultimately, it is essential to thoughtfully resolve traffic challenges before granting approval for further expansion is even considered.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Good day, Commissioners, and thank you for your time. We are here today to share our concerns about serious traffic impact from the elementary school in our neighborhood. According to the school's own report, whether it's 440, 476, 503, or 600 students attend the campus. If we assume, I'm going to get numerical here, if we assume 2 students per vehicle, that creates roughly 300 vehicles coming and going every day. Each of those vehicles makes 4 trips, 2 for drop-off and 2 for pickup. That equals 1,200 trips per school day just from parents. When you add in approximately 50 staff members who also drive in and out daily, that number rises to about 1,300 vehicle trips every single day, all moving through narrow residential streets that were never designed to handle this level of traffic. The neighborhood layout only makes this worse. The school sits near a cul-de-sac. So many drivers end up using the cul-de-sac or private driveways to turn around. The school parking lot has fewer than 60 spaces, which is simply inadequate to handle this volume. On top of the daily situation, special events like craft show, parent-teacher conferences, horse and buggy night, donuts with dudes creates overwhelming congestion and serious safety risks. This is not a new concern. For years, neighbors have reached out to the school by phone, email, but very little action was taken. Only after the expansion application was submitted did the school put up signs telling parents not to park in certain areas. While we appreciate the effort, this has only pushed traffic into other parts of the neighborhood and is unlikely to be a lasting solution. As we often say, past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. The reality is that 1,300 additional trips every day create unnecessary risk for families and children, while also disrupting quality of life for those who live here. These streets were designed for a quiet, walkable neighborhood, not the traffic of a commercial campus. Expansion of programs at the school will only make this problem worse. We strongly urge you to personally visit the neighborhood before making your decision. See for yourself what it is like to live with these level of traffic and what it means for families who are directly impacted. At very least, a traffic study prior to any decision. This is not about opposing education. It is about fixing a serious traffic problem that has gotten out of hand and protecting the safety and livability of our neighborhood and the quality of life. I am not in favor for any expansion until the school and the school community has addressed this gross misuse of our neighborhood streets. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Oh, could you state your name for the record, please?
Oh, Michael Pavona. I'm on the cul-de-sac on College.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hi, I'm Mary Van Kuiken. I live directly across from the the smaller parking lot on Russwood. My neighbor and I, Nancy Benzer, went around to the neighborhood, the streets surrounding the school, going around the school. We got 71 signatures from neighbors. We wanted to know how they felt about things. We didn't want to just assume. So this is the originals. I have some other copies, but anyway, I don't know who would get this. You want me to start there? Okay. It was really interesting. I was very concerned that people would be very upset. Everyone was really eager to sign this. We're not against the school. We just wanted to see how everyone is feeling. I had 3 people message me this morning and ask if they could still sign. So they were all very interested. They eager to sign. Yes, they like the school, but they're concerned about the traffic and the parking. Not against proposed addition, but worried that someone's going to get hurt or worse. And I had a number of people say that to me. And they thanked us for doing this, that someone should be talking about this. Michael's right. On certain streets, a few years ago, a couple of years ago even, there wasn't much parking. Now, going up Conger, there's parking almost all the way to Belknap even, which is a couple of blocks up. I talked with a lovely lady and her husband the other night. They've lived there for over 30 years, the Mays, and she told about how she had to take her granddaughter to school, and a parent parked in front of her driveway, and she walked out there and said, "You can't park here. I have to take my granddaughter." And the man just kind of laughed at her and walked away. And that isn't the only time we heard that. Both Nancy and I had no time to talk while we were doing this for the last 3 nights, but we got together yesterday for lunch with a few of other women from the neighborhood, and we were just astounded at how many times we had heard this from people that the parents wouldn't let them out of the park or out of their driveways in order to go to their jobs or to school, take their kids to school. I was really shocked at that. So what people, I know I only have 3 seconds, but everyone's really concerned about the construction on 3 Mile Road, which is a major project.
Yeah.
And then this construction at the school is supposed to go on at exactly the same time.
Yes, thank you so much. And we did read that in your letters, so we appreciate that very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alan Pilkington, and I live on the cul-de-sac as well. And I sent a letter in to the, and you saw it, so can I read a little bit of it anyways? Why not? Okay. So I'm here today to raise concerns about traffic and parking along the section of College Avenue Northeast where I live and many of my neighbors. Particularly during school pickup times, twice a day, the street becomes congested with parents parked along the roadway waiting to pick up their children. The situation presents a serious safety hazard for myself and my neighbors. And this is the thing that nobody said so far that I think is really important. If an emergency vehicle had to come to my house, I don't know if they could do it because the streets aren't that big. And if cars are all parked all along the cul-de-sac, and sometimes cars are on the other side because it's our house and, or it's where we live, and people park their cars on the street. So now we got cars on both sides of the street. And if a fire truck had to come down there, I don't know if they could. So, given the ongoing safety concerns and caused by traffic and parking, not just twice a day, but also during the evening events that Michael mentioned, and I also submitted to you a video and some pictures of when they have their horse-drawn carriage thing. Last year, I didn't take a video because I was so mad. They actually parked the horse trailer. They couldn't get it around the cul-de-sac. So they ended up being right in front of my house for about 20 minutes. And I went out there and said, you need to move this. They're like, we're trying. That's craziness. Again, safety concerns. If my house was on fire, how could the fire department get there? So I don't believe that the Grand Rapids Planning Commission should approve the proposed school expansion. The current traffic issues are already disruptive and hazardous, and expansion would only make them worse. So thank you for your time.
Would anyone else like to speak during this public hearing? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Would y'all like to come up and address any of the comments?
Rob's my backup, but I definitely want to be able to just address some of the concerns brought up and how we've handled them. There's a whole list of things that we have done since some of these concerns were brought up before school started. The cone issue was brought up so that the street sweepers were not able to get under there. That made sense. We do have someone who at the beginning of the school year was picking up the cones every day and putting them back in the grass and then putting them back on the road the next day. Now they're just up on the edge. If that's not the case, then I would like to know because that is their job. But it's up on the edge because we found that it was still effective, and those signs are, the cones are there for the non-parking areas or the bus zone, things like that. We did put up signs for aspects of parking on the preferred side of the street. The aspect of the emergency vehicles in the cul-de-sac was brought up at that meeting. That's a very good point. So we said we want our people to just park on the school side of the street. So we said, please park on this side. We have created slips that we have put on cars that have parked on the other side of the road. The last phone call that we got, or it was an email actually, email at the end of the day, I believe that was on September 11th, regarding someone was parking on the non-preferred side of the street, still in the public parking area, but on the non-preferred side. And so I actually assigned one of our staff members to start being up in that location on a Monday. She has rerouted people who are questioning if they should park on the non-preferred side of the street, and she's just directed them to another area. So we have addressed that, and we addressed it immediately. We are willing to explore a traffic study. I welcome input on how we can do this better. That's the only way that we can continue to improve in every aspect of what we do. So we have a staggered drop-off in the morning. In fact, we just moved more students to a later drop-off in the morning, our developmental kindergarten this last year, or this school year, so that they start at 8:30 rather than 8, and that was to help with congestion at drop-off times. I think we've already addressed the number of students that actually are on campus each day, so I won't rehash that. We do have Donuts with Dad, and we do have those events. We have worked to have a really strong culture with our parents. We want to have connections with them. We want students to have men in their life and women in their life that are invested in them and invested in their schooling. So we do want those cultural activities. So we do have the events. We also work to post that on our social media with the neighborhood so that they are on the neighborhood site, actually, so that they have an idea ahead of time. And I apologize for the years where we have thought we were helping with congestion on Fridays, because Fridays tend to get a little more congested, so we moved it to Thursday, and whoops, that's recycling day. And so that was a bad move because it was also winter. So we learned the hard way. That was not an actual improvement. That was something that we had to learn through. So we do take these conversations seriously when we are contacted, and we have dialogue on the other end. Sometimes the conversation is such that I reach back out to the person that has the concern, such as Nancy when she was concerned about the construction debris making its way down to the drain on the corner of Sly and Sinclair. We regularly now, we have a relationship with her where we have fifth graders that go down and they actually clean the drain, whether it's construction debris or which it's not construction debris anymore, it's tree debris and things like that. So we want to be a good neighbor, and so we welcome those comments. I don't want anyone to think that they're hurting my feelings. I do want us to be better. The city parking signs, that's something for the city to decide if public parking should be in an area where it is allowed on both sides of the street or not. So that's for the city to decide, but we have listened and we have asked for parents to park on the preferred side of the street. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any follow-up questions, commissioners? Okay, have us, oh,
Just
I'm so
have
sorry.
one.
Yeah.
What percentage of students, this always looked like a community or, a neighborhood type of a school to me, but it sounds like you have a high percentage that are commuting in one fashion or another. So what percentage of the students
I don't have a percentage,
walk to school?
There are currently no students who walk to school.
Okay.
And there haven't been in several years. We have had 2 families that have walked that I remember, 3 families, excuse me, since I've been at this school that I'm aware of. I started as a teacher here 17 school years ago. In this role, this is my 7th year, and we've only had 3 families who have had their students walk. That being said, we draw mostly from the 49505, which is our zip code, and 49525, which is our high school's zip code. Those are our largest areas of student population. I don't know the percentages, but we do draw from a variety of counties because there are some areas where there is not Christian school availability or quality Christian education availability. Good question.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, commissioners.
I guess, like I said, I drove by there yesterday, and I could tell that there was some activity because there were a lot of signs and cones out, which I don't know if they're just up by the school day, but they in themselves were kind of not the most beautiful thing to see out your front door or anything, but it does sound like this is more of a commuter school and more accommodation needs to be made. And as much as I hate to build more parking, that it isn't adequate for the amount of activity. That said, the things that you want to do with the school, the quality of all of that is certainly something that, as a citizen of Grand Rapids, I would advocate for. But I am concerned in hearing from the neighbors, and given that you're on a cul-de-sac as well as on two other streets that are, I can't remember if Sinclair is through street or not, I think adds to that as well. So I do have some concerns about the congestion and the parking, and certainly at the very least would want to see a traffic study.
Yeah, I guess I also live by an elementary school, not this one, but and fortunately in my case the streets are better aligned for through traffic, but it is challenging. And when you have what sounds like roughly about 200 or so, if we assume 75 or so taking a shuttle, and you've got 475 a day and 2 kids a car, which maybe is an average 200 parents a day, you're going to have some parents that are going to look the other way and park in front of your driveway, which is unfortunate. I would not like to see additional parking or paving of green space, and yet I do feel like there's work that needs to be done to, it sounds like from testimony that the emails didn't go noticed, but the public comments in a meeting did, and that was fairly recent. And I guess where I'm at in my head is we have 9 months until they want to start construction. And to me, it feels maybe appropriate to consider a table and give them a few months to improve the situation and demonstrate improvement, and hopefully, adjust some of the feedback we're receiving from neighbors, and perhaps we get feedback that the situation has improved to the greatest extent possible. And maybe that gives us an opportunity to look at it a little differently. Perhaps that means a traffic study, although traffic studies generally don't talk about poor driver behavior, which I think is really the primary concern here. Is not, the reality is there's public parking along all these streets, and that I don't mind if that's full all the time. That's what it's for. But blocking driveways, blocking streets, disrespectful behavior to the neighbors is something that I think can be improved upon. And so I'm not certain a traffic study would indicate anything that would be helpful to us. But I would like to see, some continuation of what sounds like some measures that have made us a bit of a positive change. I do think there's opportunity for additional busing. I think, culture around school has changed. I walked to school when I was a kid, but my kids did not, and we didn't live near the school that they went to. But additional, really, I think public transit, which a school bus essentially is a way to change this, and I think that could be a potential solution to provide additional busing from other drop-off points that would make things easier for parents and neighbors to navigate, because a parent doesn't want to sit there and try to find a parking spot and try to get out of that neighborhood in a day either. So I guess that's where I'm leaning at the moment.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if Avery can pull up the, Elizabeth asked for the plan that showed all the topography, it's the overall site plan with the grades. It's a larger one. Yeah. So just want to point out one thing. We have explored where do you put parking? And, obviously the playground and the soccer field and the basketball courts are huge for not only the students but the community. These steep slopes with some of the rules are a problem. We did say, well, what if we came in here with an ingress one way with some 45-degree parking where you could get some, but we get into steep slopes and taking out trees and retaining walls. That's the only space besides parking on top of the basketball courts available. So we have tried to look at, are there any practical places to put parking? And I, as an engineer, have been at a loss knowing some of the rules as to what to suggest. The only viable one would be a long queuing along there, but it's just, I think I'm going to run into some challenges with city staff and steep parking and tree canopies. And
Yeah, just to be clear, I don't intend, or I wouldn't suggest additional parking. I think we need behavior modification and transportation modifications, not additional parking, because that's what it sounds like the problem is.
So I'm a little conflicted. If we knew enrollment wasn't going to go up with the new classrooms, I think we have to believe that, but I don't think there's any way to enforce it. The numbers are close-ish to what was in the meeting minutes from last time. They specifically said 440 for this specific building last time, and so if the 600 is not just this building, then so traffic in general is not going to change if we do this addition and we're not adding students. If students are just moving inside of the building from one space to another, it's not going to change any of the behavior on site in any way, shape, or form. I also looked at the meeting minutes from the last meeting, and the traffic and speeding and parking in front of driveways, those were all similar concerns prior to the previous 6 classrooms. So it's been, I think there was a letter that made it seem like this problem didn't exist until that addition, or this problem didn't exist in its current state until that addition was built. And based on the meeting minutes from the January meeting in 2022, I would say there were quite a few concerns about traffic and speeding and parking in front of driveways back then. So if there's not going to be, pretty much all of the concerns that we've heard are around traffic. So if we're not increasing students, then there's going to be zero impact on traffic.
I'm in a very similar space. I don't think the size of this addition is going to meaningfully impact the ability to increase enrollment. So I agree with what has already been said. It does seem to me like maybe there is a way to modify the site to allow better drop-off, that maybe the drop-off route could be enhanced in some way, even on what looks like the front end of the building along Russwood. But ultimately where I'm at is if we deny it today, well then theoretically nothing will happen. But if we table or approve, then at least this traffic study will happen, and we likely will get some better results. So I am open to tabling and also would approve today.
I seem to recall that when we did hear this before, these same issues came up, and there was, efforts or promises of efforts to be made to control that and change it. Fast forward, we haven't seen those changes. I agree, I would like to see this project go forward. Like I said, it enhances education, which is to me a key value for our community and important to the future of Grand Rapids. But I do sympathize with the problems, and also think that alternative transportation could be another means of addressing some of these current concerns as well, and that we have a second time around to really address these concerns.
Yeah, I was just going to note that, the ordinance bases the increased use intensity on physical expansion and physical floor area, and your parking standards tie back to the physical space that's available. So while it may not be the intent to see an increase in enrollment, and it sounds like that was not the impetus of the prior project, there are opportunities here with the expansion to address some of the, or at least attempt to address some of the concerns by bringing in some additional expertise around mobility that perhaps can be partnered with the school to take a look at this, not just from a parking perspective, but also a traffic management perspective. And Ms. Joseph mentioned safe routes to school. That would be, of course, but one alternative. There's various experts that even the city has in-house that can make some suggestions and partner with it, partners within the community that might be able to provide some additional support to the school about different strategies that could be employed to help manage their traffic more effectively. So if nothing else, this could be that opportunity to push for those connections to take place without any sort of significant delay in the project. This could happen over the course of a month or two, and then the applicant could come back for a decision. So that's something that is within the Planning Commission's authority to do so. I think alternatively, you could put a condition on it after the fact, a condition on it as part of an approval, and that's something that could be addressed between staff and the school itself. That sort of leaves the neighborhood out of some of those conversations and some of those opportunities to weigh in. So that's something that the Planning Commission would want to counter or, consider and balance.
So the last time that they got the approval and they were supposed to look at the parking situation, was one of the conditions that it actually takes place and happens with some quantifiable result prior to a LUDS permit?
From the previous approval, you're asking?
Correct.
I need to look at how that was discussed.
The minutes only had the standard set A.
Yeah, so there was no specific condition, there was discussion about it. And so without a specific condition, there isn't the authority of staff, there's not a lot of guidance to staff about what to do with that discussion or give us the ability to not issue the permit. So perhaps in hindsight, maybe we weren't as clear about what our expectations should be in terms of directing staff before the permit was issued. But typically, if it's a condition of approval, staff would have to determine that that condition has been satisfied before we would release the permit.
Yeah, so we have the ability to be a little more enforcing on that if it's worded correctly.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think that's why I would, like I said, I wanted to see this project go through. I think it's positive, but want to also address the concerns. I think by tabling it, we include the neighbors in that process. They've taken the time and effort to talk to us, and I would not want to deny them that again.
Okay, so like others have said around this table, I don't think that this approval of this expansion will exacerbate any of the traffic issues that have been voiced here. As someone with 5 kids in 3 different schools, I completely understand the nightmare that is drop-off and pickup, and I really appreciate community concerns around that. I also agree that we have public parking on our streets to be utilized, and that is what it's for. And I'm grateful that in this neighborhood there is so much off-street parking for folks, but obviously that poor behavior by blocking driveways and streets should not be tolerated. So one of the reasons why I brought up Safe Routes to School is that some of those different methods that can be implemented, especially if you're drawing from your existing zip code here, are things like walk to school buses. So like people come together to walk their kids all together instead of just sending an individual child, or like like collaborating together to bike their kids to school together. So those are some of the things that could come out of a Safe Routes to School study. That does take time and effort. But yeah, I think this does present us an opportunity to hopefully implement some additional measures. I don't feel strongly either way about whether it's an approval with specific conditions surrounding traffic study and community involvement, or whether it's a tabling.
So we can approve with a condition for community engagement, or would it only be the traffic study?
I think you could approve it subject to a condition for additional engagement. It's much more difficult for me to evaluate whether the engagement would meet your collective wisdom or expectations. I guess if I had a preference, and I don't want to delay the project, but if I had a preference based on this conversation, I would suggest that a tabling would be more appropriate, and looking at the draft condition that's before you, and perhaps modifying that into a directive to both city staff and the applicant about what expectations would need to be accomplished. Perhaps you bolster that with the expectation of some additional neighborhood engagement as part of the development of what might be a mobility management plan before it comes back to Planning Commission.
I also would mention, so in my day job, we do a lot related to transportation, and we have one kind of gap in safety-related data is that it only captures crashes that have police involved. And so one resource that the community members can use is if you just Google Grand Valley Metro Council near miss tool, there's a place where you can anonymously report near miss incidents. And so we pass that along to the city and other members for them to use in traffic safety planning as well. Because as it stands, there are very few crashes documented in the neighborhood, and so it doesn't capture kind of that experience that you have shared with us today. So I would encourage that too. In addition to obviously communicating with the school, and they seem to want to be good stewards of this as well.
I do think that the school is clearly an asset to the neighborhood, and I think that the neighbors largely, even in the letters that opposed or expressed concern over, and I don't like the term traffic, because this is not about trips per day. It's about behavior of drivers and how they use their vehicles as they make their trips. And I would hope that and having been part of a small private school community for a number of years, I know the community that exists there. I would hope that the school community could rally and embrace the neighborhood community and understand that if we can make some minor changes to the way we behave, we can continue to be a better neighbor and continue to, and in this case, have additional facilities for our children to use. I love the idea of, perhaps it's just simply educating parents as to how their behavior is affecting the neighbors, or how just the amount of cars, those times a day affects the neighborhood. So I think, that's where I get the term traffic, and even a traffic study, I don't think is comprehensive enough here, because it's not about number of trips really. It's about how those trips are behaving more so. So I don't know how to word that, but.
I was thinking of wording it to table it so that the school would, somehow the language would reflect, engage further with the surrounding neighbors, and employ other resources and expertise in designing a better flow of traffic, or something, not specifying a traffic study or this or that, but utilize different resources that are available to improve and resolve the concerns of traffic provided by traffic, I mean the number of people coming in and out. Transportation maybe is a better word for the school. Because I think it's also important, and they already, the more that they are a part of the community, and they're not a part of the community so much as the children in that neighborhood go to that school, but it certainly is a beautiful and wonderful asset to the neighborhood as well. And I'm thinking that, this isn't, the problem didn't start or doesn't start with this addition. It's been ongoing, it sounds like, for a number of years.
And my sentiment is similar to that of Commissioner Yonkers. So we were part of a small private school community as well, and I recall how parents. There was just a long processional of parents dropping off their children at school. And I thought that was just something unique to a private school community. And then we moved back into the city across the street from a public elementary school, and the same thing happens. So I think in this situation, it might be appropriate to table our findings on this to allow the school to have additional communication, not with neighbors, but with the parents, and see if we have any change in parental behavior, and then allow them to come back.
Yeah, I like that idea. Almost like a good neighbor policy, but in this case, it would be a good parent policy, right? Where we're not going to criticize their driving, but we're going to tell them what good driving looks like and what to avoid. I know personally, if I lived in the cul-de-sac, I'd be wanting them to eliminate all traffic that came into a zero exit street and, with a sign that says no public, if you're not a resident, don't drive down here, just eliminate that. But because it's just a problem waiting to happen. But I think a good parent policy, like a good neighbor policy could be a document that could be shared with, the parent community and be a constant handout at the start of every school year as a reminder.
I do wonder, though, if there aren't some physical modifications to the drop-off and those kinds of things that would also help alleviate the congestion that you get when you've got, for a short period of time, a number of cars coming into a very small residential area. So I wouldn't want to eliminate that, as well as I agree with the other things that you've been saying. So, in terms of exploring solutions, that might also be on the table.
I'll support tabling it. I do want to caution everybody that I don't think that we're going to see any dramatic changes in how the neighborhood feels about it or in traffic patterns in a couple of months. Reason being, having worked on preliminary planning and designing for schools, traffic is a problem for all of them. 8 minutes for pickup and drop off for 400 students is really good. And so any changes through design, if they don't go backwards, are going to be incremental at best. So you're not going to go from 8 minutes to 1. You're not going to cut it in half. You're not going to 4. Like, you could go from, and again, this is really more about behavior. We could get into the arguments about whether or not cul-de-sacs should exist, but they are still public streets, so telling people they can't drive on them, it's public space. Yeah, I'm willing to support tabling it so that some more work can be done, but I would like to caution everybody, I don't think much is going to be different in a couple months.
But I do think they would have an opportunity to identify additional thank you, additional planning and strategies or solutions they could employ in that amount of time. But I also hear what you're saying.
I have a very rough draft of a tabling recommendation, so you can finesse this, please, but a table to allow time for the applicant to conduct additional engagement with parents of their school, and then the neighbor, as well as the neighborhood, to learn more about the traffic challenges experienced by neighbors. Input from the engagement should be used to develop a parent drop-off/pickup policy and to help inform a revised traffic mobility plan that can be submitted for review by the Planning Department and Mobile GR Department and for further reconsideration by the Planning Commission.
I would potentially suggest changing parent to just guardian to make it
We use caregiver.
caregiver.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Struggling a lot with that.
I would move that.
Support.
Okay, motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I was going to say, let's take a 5-minute break. So we can.
Okay.
All right, so I know Kristen had to step out for just a moment, but I think she'll be back soon and that we can move forward in her brief absence to 855 Butterworth. Thanks, Laura.
You're welcome. Okay, so our next case is 855 Butterworth. This is a request to add an additional dwelling unit in an existing multifamily residential building for a total of 4 dwelling units. The property is in the traditional neighborhood low-density residential zone district, surrounded by properties in the same zone district. It is close to a traditional business area district as well. Multiple family residential uses in the TN LDR zone districts may be permitted with special land use approval with further review by the Planning Commission due to a density greater than that is normally allowed. This property is in the Butterworth area specific plan identified as a compact neighborhood, and the future intent of this neighborhood type in the area specific plan is to allow for a greater variety and additional density for residential properties. This property is on the north side of Butterworth between Indiana and Mardell Place. It is surrounded by residential properties, and there's to the east at the corner of Butterworth and Indiana, there's a commercial use. It's an interior design studio and a small retail shop available to the public. The property is an existing 2-story residential structure with a detached garage, shed, and concrete parking pad. The house was constructed in the early 1920s, and it was owner-occupied by the same person from 1940 until 2023. In 1951, city records indicate that there were 3 dwelling units within the house. The ground floor was the owner-occupied dwelling, and 2 apartments were upstairs. So the 2 apartments were certified as rental units. The ground floor was never inspected or certified because if it's owner-occupied, that's not required for certification. So at some point in that time period, there was a 4th dwelling unit created in the ground floor. And it was created, I couldn't find any building permits for this, and there are no records of it ever having been certified. So the city was never aware of this unit. In 2023, the property sold and changed, has new ownership, and now all 4 dwelling units are currently occupied and rented. And this request is before you to legally establish the 4th dwelling unit. So no site or building changes are proposed. A building permit, if the Planning Commission is amenable to this request, a building permit will be required, and there have been discussions with the building official that the 4th dwelling unit would need to be brought up to meet current code standards. If there are any building changes required to make that happen, those can be reviewed at an administrative level. If we want to talk about density, the maximum density allowed for a multiple family development in this zone district is 2,000 square feet per dwelling unit. This 8,378 square foot property can accommodate the proposed 4 dwelling units. One other consideration is parking. For 4 dwelling units, 6 parking spaces are required. There are 4 parking spaces on site, 2 in the garage and 2 on the parking pad next to the garage. Deficiency of 2 spaces. So the Planning Commission can incorporate a waiver of these 2 parking spaces provided, given that there's transit and on-street parking available in the area. So in sum, we are asking for Planning Commission consideration of a 4-unit multifamily dwelling in the traditional neighborhood, low-density residential zone district. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Laura? Oh, got one.
The one picture looks like they're using more than the parking pad for parking. Obviously, there's a vehicle there.
This is a Google Street View image. There is a vehicle there. I did not mention, and I intended to, there's an unpaved alley running along the back of the property. So, you know, the alley is there for vehicle access. It is not currently a paved alley. So it does look like there have been some, you know, parking patterns that go rogue that often happen when there's not pavement on the ground. But it's difficult to say if that vehicle you see there is on the subject property or on a neighboring property.
It actually looks like it's on the neighbor property based on the line where the parking pad is, yeah.
It could be.
Laura, can you remind me, because I went by both of them, but there's two Butterworths, so cases before us today. Was there a issue with a firewall or anything on this one?
In conversations with the building official, that fourth unit will need to be brought up to current building code standards. And there was some conversation of whether the entire building would need to have fire suppression or not.
Oof.
Typically, in a multifamily dwelling of 3 units or higher, it does need fire suppression. In this case, because the existing 3 dwelling units were constructed and certified and legal prior to current building code standards, there's some flexibility that can be taken. And so it's this 4th unit that would need to be brought up to building code standards.
And that would be a part of our approval?
It would be.
That would have to happen?
Yes, a
Okay.
building permit would be required. It's in the.
I thought I read that, but I wanted to just refresh myself.
Awesome. Anything else for Laura? Okay, we'll have the applicant come up, add anything you'd like.
Hi, I'm Tyler Johnson. I'm the owner. Yeah, she did a great job of summarizing. I acquired this property, like 9 months ago, I think. And when I bought it, I had no reason to believe that it wasn't a certified.
We want to make sure we pick you up.
Sorry.
Feel free to move that.
I had no reason to believe that it wasn't a certified 4 unit. I had bought it from a wholesaler, so those kinds of transactions are always what they are. If it's not an agent representing, you don't always know what you're getting. So, but yeah, I found out during a rental inspection that it was not certified, and so led down the road of the SLU, and it's a perfectly habitable unit, and it has been rented in the past. So, and there's a family in there now. So, just trying to get it legal. So, if I don't know if anybody has any questions for me, but.
Thank you. Any questions? No, thank you so much. All right, we'll have you sit down and we'll open up the public hearing. Anyone here on this case, come up. Tell us your thoughts. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners.
Given that we spend a lot of time talking about needing more housing, I would be reluctant to take an existing apartment off the usage and thank the owner for making things legal.
Yeah, from a planning perspective, I think this is pretty easy. I think basically it's about parking, right? I am in support of it. I feel bad for the building code part of it, but that has nothing to do with us, thankfully.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I think it'll be a net win just because of the kind of bringing it up to code. It's consistent with the CMP and ASP and all of that. Do I have a motion?
I can make a motion. Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Commission approves a special land use and site plan review request of River City Properties LLC, Tyler Johnson, of an additional dwelling unit in an existing multifamily residential building for a total of 4 units, and a waiver of 2 required parking spaces at 855 Butterworth Street Southwest for the following reasons. The proposed use will be consistent with the purpose and intent of the master plan and zoning ordinance because the zone including the zone district, because the use will support the recommendation of the Butterworth Area Specific Plan and 2024 Community Master Plan for a variety of housing, including denser types of housing in low-density residential zones, up to including quadplexes. The proposed use will meet the site plan review standards of Section 5.12.08E because no site or building changes are proposed and all the elements of the site design are harmoniously and efficiently organized in relation to the size and type of lot, character of the neighborhood, and adjoining property. Proposed use will be compatible, harmonious, and appropriate with the character and uses of the neighborhood, adjacent properties, and natural environment because the residential use is at an appropriate density for the size and nature of the site. The proposed use will not have adverse effects on the neighborhood because on-street parking and transit are available in the vicinity and buildings and structures entrances are appropriately oriented on the site. The proposed use will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to existing or future uses to the public welfare by reason of excessive traffic, noise, or visual clutter because this will be residential use in a residential area. The property has been operating with 4 dwelling units for a number of years and vehicular access to the property will be from the alley. Proposed use will not adversely affect the walkability of the neighborhood, impair pedestrian circulation patterns, disrupt the continuity of the urban street wall, or otherwise hinder the creation of a pedestrian-oriented environment because the building already exists and currently contributes to the street wall supporting a pedestrian-oriented environment and is not proposed to change. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the financial stability and economic welfare of the city because the additional dwelling units will contribute to the tax base and support the nearby business district. Proposed use would not comply would comply with all other applicable city ordinances and policies and all applicable state laws because without I don't know what that's about. I'm just going to strike 5C. Be it further resolved that the following conditions of approval shall apply to this project. Standard conditions set A, approval. And that's all.
Support.
All right, I have a motion and support by Swem, Aaron, and Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we will now move on to our next Butterworth case, 1058 Butterworth Southwest.
So still on Butterworth, this property is located on the south side of Butterworth, near to Industrial Zone District. The property was recently, the City Commission recently approved a rezoning of this subject property from the Industrial District to the traditional neighborhood low-density residential that occurred in 2023. There's traditional business area to the north and residential houses, low-density residential to the east. The request is construction of a new 2-family residential dwelling. As you can see in this image, the subject property is unimproved green space. I could not find any evidence that this property has ever been improved. The property is 5,456 square feet in area. It is mostly flat with a grade change closest to the north side of the property. It drops 5 feet in elevation pretty quickly from the property line moving south. You'll see how this impacts the site design a little bit later. So the proposed site plan, all trees and vegetation will be removed. A building with a footprint of 1,315 square feet will be constructed with a front porch at the front and an upper level deck at the back. And a new driveway will provide access to 3 parking spaces behind the house. And this, next to the driveway is a pedestrian walkway to provide access from the parking area to the front of the property, as the front doors to the units, the only doors to the units are located at the front of the house. The duplex will be upper-lower. The lower unit will be comprised of the ground floor and the basement with a combined total area of 2,300 square feet. It will include 6 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2 living areas, and a kitchen. The upper unit will be 1,250 square feet with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a living area, kitchen, and that upper level deck for residents' use. Daylight windows will be installed at the south elevation and the east elevation. Here's where you see the grade change come in to benefit the building the way it was designed. It helps to, the natural grade change will help facilitate the use of daylight windows as opposed to egress window wells. So these provide emergency egress from the basement bedrooms. The site and the building have been designed to meet ordinance standards, so I won't go over all of them. The plan does indicate horizontal siding, but no additional details of the materials were provided. Transparency calculations were also not provided. It does appear that the elevations meet transparency requirements. The Planning Commission, may consider whether appears to meet requirements and can be confirmed at permitting. And I will also mention that the minimum green space is 35%. This plan, the green space of 35.4% is provided. And I mention that because there's no wiggle room for any future improvements that would require impervious surface to be added. Relative to parking, a 2-family dwelling requires 3 parking spaces. As you can see on the site plan, 3 parking spaces are provided. The parking requirement will be met. Letters of support have been received and are included in your packet. So in sum, we are asking the Planning Commission to consider the impact of the proposed 2-family residential dwelling on the desired character of the surrounding neighborhood, whether the proposed plan meets site plan review standards, given the size and proportion of the proposed building and the provision of efficient livable use of the property. Are there any questions for me?
Any questions for Laura? Okay, nope. We will, nope. Okay, thanks, Laura. We'll have the applicant come up and add anything else you'd like us to know.
Hello, my name is Ricardo Labra. I purchased this property earlier this year. I think it's important to note that the previous owner did go through an application to get a 2-unit and as well, I believe it was an ADU approved, and I believe the planning department was in favor of that. I believe we just had to go through the SLU process because we're requesting a duplex build instead of a side-by-side townhouse build. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. New build duplex, fitting the required parking on the lot as well. Are we able to get a Google Streets view up on the screen? I was going to show them 317 Marion, which is a duplex that we just built. We finished up earlier this year, which is just around the corner. But if that's not possible, that's okay. My point in saying that is I have a lot of interest in this area. I own 4 properties on Marion there, southwest, 313, 317, 321, and 327 Marion, southwest. So just to let you know, I have great interest in making this new build a great project for the community.
Questions? Yeah.
Are you looking at similar materials compared to 317?
317, we use a composite siding, which is very nice, possibly. It'll for sure be, vinyl, but possibly upgrade it to a composite siding that we use at 317, which I did like a lot, so potentially.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, thank you very much. You can have a seat.
Okay, thank you.
I'll open the public hearing. Anyone here want to make comment? Make your way up to the microphone. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and turn to my fellow commissioners.
I did go down the side street not knowing that the applicant had also also owns some of those properties and was delighted at the appearance of them. So I'm confident that this will add that same street appeal as well as much-needed housing. So I support it.
The 317 Marion property, if this is going to look like that, it fits in with the character of the neighborhood, and I wouldn't have any reservations on on approving the application.
Yeah, I mean, I've walked this stretch of Butterworth quite a bit in my life, and I'm glad that this property will be utilized for additional housing that is much needed in our city. I believe also in addition to, Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, in addition to the 2 letters of support, we did get a letter of non-opposition from JBAN. Okay, cool. Others? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Therefore, be it resolved that the Planning Commission approves the special land use and site plan review request of Ricardo Labra to construct a new 2-family dwelling consisting of a 3-bedroom and a 6-bedroom unit at 1058 Butterworth Street for the following reasons. The proposed use will be consistent with the purpose and intent of the master plan and the zoning ordinance, including the zone district, because the development will support the recommendation of the Butterworth Area Specific Plan and 2024 Community Master Plan for a variety of housing, including denser types of housing types in low-density residential zones. The proposed use will meet the site plan review standards of Section 5.12.08E because the site has been harmoniously and efficiently organized in relation to the size and type of lot, character of the neighborhood, and adjoining structures. The site design incorporates adequate means of ingress and egress with a walkway connecting each residence and the parking area to the public sidewalk. The parking area is designed to provide adequate vehicle circulation. The proposed use will be compatible, harmonious, and appropriate with the character and uses of the neighborhood, adjacent properties, and the natural environment because the proposed structures are consistent in scale and orientation with what is desired in the TN neighborhood classification, and the proposed use will result in a density appropriate for this area. Proposed use will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood because adequate parking is provided on-site considering the availability of on-street parking and transit. Buildings, structures, and entrances are appropriately oriented on the site, and the building setbacks meet the minimum zoning requirements and are consistent with neighboring properties. The proposed uses will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to existing or future uses or to the public welfare by reason of excessive traffic, noise, or visual clutter because this is a residential use in a residentially zoned area. The proposed use will not adversely affect the walkability of the neighborhood, impair pedestrian circulation patterns, disrupt the continuity of the urban street wall, or otherwise hinder the creation of a pedestrian-oriented environment because the proposed building will be set back consistent with the properties on the same side of the block and the covered porch, front porch, entrances, and rear yard parking reflect a pedestrian-oriented site. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the financial stability and economic welfare of the city because the infill development and provisions of additional housing units will support a complete and stable neighborhood. The proposed use will comply with all other applicable city ordinances and policies and all applicable state laws because the additional dwelling units will contribute to the tax base and support the nearby business district, and the proposed development will encourage additional investment in the neighborhood. Be it further resolved that the following conditions of approval shall apply to the project. Standard conditions set A approvals. And condition 2, that the basement shall not be converted into a separate third dwelling unit. I've made the motion, but just a question on 5C. Proposed use will comply with all other applicable city ordinances and policies because the dwelling units will contribute to tax base. Is that, I feel like there's a misalignment there, maybe.
Yeah, it feels like those belong to 5.
Yeah. I'm going to strike 5C in its entirety and just leave it at that. How about? We'll keep it simple.
Support.
All right, we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I could move in there with my family. It'd be great. Okay, we will do our final case, a site plan review for Ball Street Avenue.
Okay. So this is final site plan review associated with a preliminary site plan review and special land use approval of December 12th, 2024. There were 4 of you here on that date. 1 was absent, and then we have 3 new planning commissioners. I will not belabor the whole thing, but I will give you a little bit of background, okay? So the Planning Commission held a public hearing and deliberated and approved the special land use and conditioned approval on final site plan review at Planning Commission to ensure compliance with certain zoning and engineering conditions. So that's what we're here today to discuss, whether the plans meet those requirements. Additionally, there has been a very minor modification to the plans. They added basements in some of the units. It's not material to the site plan, but that's also part of it. So the overall site is about 3.4 acres, and it's on the east side of Ball. A 35-foot ravine. Oops, this is not, oh, okay. A 35-foot ravine is in the back of the property. The site is wooded with the most heavily on the east side by the ravine and on the south side, and that's where the most high-quality trees are. Actually, if I go back to this slide, you can see this SDOS. We have Huff Park here to the south and to the east. What did I say, Huff? Ball Perkins. I've been getting a lot of emails about Huff Park. Ball Perkins. And then there's a church to the north. So that is relevant. I have another slide here that shows all the vegetation in the park. And the ravine on the east side of the property. And I point that out because that's really what we're going to be talking about today, the natural features. I have the applicant's engineer is here who will be able to talk in detail about this, as well as the city's stormwater project engineer. Relative to the project, this is what was the preliminary plan approved by the Planning Commission in December. Up on the northwest corner, there's a farmhouse that has already been divided off the property. That pink is now a separate parcel. The remaining 9 acres, on the remaining 9 acres, a total of 77 townhomes and 2 single-family home sites are proposed. They're all attached single families. They're townhomes. Actually, I should stay there. So also a new public street is proposed. The cul-de-sac that you see here, that is going to be a public street. A playground is proposed at the east, and a private detention basin.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
I believe you have the wrong site plan up. I believe that's the one from our last meeting.
That's exactly it. That's what I wanted to show, what was approved by the Planning Commission. Yep. So this is what went to the Planning Commission in December. So what we're here today is to look at a revised site plan that is intended to meet the conditions of approval. One of the issues is relative to what we call the water resource protection setback. So we've got a creek tributary in the bottom of the ravine here, and this blue line is the edge of that water feature. 75 feet from the edge of that water feature is a protection area in which there shall be no disturbance. This other dotted line is the 75 feet. The original plan from last December showed the detention basin encroaching into that setback. There are situations in which an encroachment can be allowed, but that's generally when there has previously been disturbance, and there will generally be no disturbance for the project. That was not found to be the case here, and one of the conditions was that the plan be revised so that the stormwater management facility be located outside of that. This is the revised site plan that shows the detention basin, or I'm not sure if it's detention or retention. I thought it was retention, but it says detention here, is outside of that 75-foot buffer. However, it should be noted that the limits of grading are right up against the edge of that stormwater facility. So for the construction of that facility, there will likely be an encroachment into the protection area. So that's one of the things to consider. Additionally, this is sort of a close-up there. Additionally, on the eastern, actually, why don't I move this over? There are a number of trees that will likely be affected by the construction of the stormwater management facility. There are a number of trees that are going to be removed, and that's understood. Most of those trees were, or a lot of the trees were either invasive or what we call uncredited trees. But even where we show the limits of grading, there are a number of trees in the steep slopes, in the protection area, whose root systems will be affected. You can see where the drip lines of the trees and where they go over the limits of grading, these trees will be affected. There are there's at least 12 high-quality trees that will be affected by that. According to our stormwater engineer, based on the proposed storage capacity, the pond will likely require an outlet unless some resizing occurs. And if an outlet, if an outlet is required, it will further disturb both the slope and the setback area. So that should be another element of discussion. And finally, there is the proposed sanitary sewer will also be disturbing natural vegetation and slopes. It's a little bit hard to understand, but right here that I'm pointing to in the middle of the slide is the bottom or the south part of the detention basin, and they plan to auger, or I don't know the right term, underground to connect to the sanitary line that is east of the property. The detention basin is supposed to be approximately here, and this orange line is the is the sanitary sewer. They will have to cross the park property, a property owned by Consumers and a property owned by Consumers Energy to connect to that. So of course, there will be some disturbance there. I understand that they'll be doing their best to limit that disturbance by boring underground. And if you need more information about that, I'll defer to both of our engineers that we have here. But in sum, about these elements that I've just mentioned, and in the staff report, that's all under the Water Resource Protection Setback section. We're asking the Planning Commission to consider whether all reasonable efforts have been undertaken in the site design and engineering, specifically the location of the stormwater management facilities, to avoid unnecessary disturbances to the natural feature setback, to high-quality trees in the protection area, and to steep slopes. Next, I'll go on to the grading plan. Let's see. All right. So the western third of the property approximately drains toward Ball. The remainder drains toward the east. The proposed grading plan will be keeping most of the stormwater contained on site, as it is required to do. There will be grading across the site ranging from 1 foot to approximately 10 feet. You might be able to notice that there will be some grading that is proposed off-site. To the north here, the applicant is proposing to build up some of the property in order to facilitate creating that building site and parking area. The alternative would be a retaining wall. So they're proposing this instead of a retaining wall. They will be obtaining, I believe they've been in discussion with the adjacent property owner, of course, and they would have permission to do this. But but the fact is, in order to facilitate their project, they will be doing some off-site grading, okay? At least 8 trees on the property to the north, they're right in here that I'm pointing to on the screen, will be removed. They're either uncredited or invasive species. That could be removed anyway. However, the roots of at least 3 high-quality trees will be impacted due to the close proximity of the grading. So relative to grading, the Planning Commission should consider whether proper grading and elevation relationships to adjacent properties are maintained. Most significant slopes and ridge lines will be maintained. Actually, there's a whole list there that's in the staff report, so I won't go through them all, but those are the elements that I'm asking you to consider. These are pulled from the zoning ordinance relative to grading and trees. There were several elements about stormwater calculations and the geotechnical report that have been submitted as requested, and they have found to be satisfactory. I'd now like to go on to the tree protection. The original submittal, because it was preliminary, did not indicate all the details of tree protection. And because the site is so wooded, it was important to know how the remaining trees would be protected. So they have provided that. It shows the extent of grading and the tree and where tree preservation fencing will be provided. I'm going to zoom it a little bit. The bold dotted line is the extent of the grading, and it's a little bit difficult to see, but there's a pink line, and that's where tree preservation fencing or tree protection fencing will be installed. And that's exactly what we want to see. I want to reiterate that same concern that I mentioned right at the beginning about the extent of the grading and effects on trees in the preservation area, because even though there'll be this tree protection fencing, some of the tree roots will be damaged given the location of the grading. So we'll ask you whether you feel that the site design is appropriate, and all efforts have been undertaken in the layout and engineering. Relative to the landscape buffer adjacent to Ball Perkins Park, we had wanted to see some additional landscaping where the new development could impact the use of adjacent properties. And that's mostly up toward the westerly portion of the property. Further east, there's a significant it's significantly wooded in the adjacent park, so we did not find it necessary that much augmentation would be needed here. And I'll go back to another slide, but the applicant's landscape architect did a really nice job of augmenting the trees that are there with additional landscape material to meet the buffer requirements. So that appears to be sufficient. In this, in the tree preservation plan, you can see how wooded it is in the park, and that really continues down. So the need for that buffer is lessened here because it's wooded all the way to the along that lot line. Where my pointer is showing, you can see a sidewalk that leads to Ball Perkins Park. The applicant has reached out to the Parks Department for permission to connect to the park, and they are in full support of that. And so the applicant is showing that connection here. Relative to the playground, the original plan showed something like this, just that there would be a play area, but we really didn't know what that would mean. So we asked for additional detail of the play area, and the applicant has provided an example of a typical playground set without site-specific detail. If you're amenable with something like that, I did include a condition of approval that details would be provided at permitting. I do also want to point out that with the changes to the stormwater facility, it will need a 4-foot fence around it, which is shown on all the plans. And the shape of the detention basin has changed, and it has become much closer to the play area. And I was hoping that there could be some discussion about that location and whether it's possible to move it slightly away from the detention basin. I did not really go over this at the beginning. The north units, the applicant is proposing to have basements in the unit. You can see here that there are some egress window wells shown on the plan. I believe these are going to be sprinkled, right? Yeah. So the ones that don't, I mean, they'll all be sprinkled, but there's also window wells. And here's an example of what the basements could look like, and they could include a future bedroom. So, this is what they could be finished out as. And even with an additional bedroom, I redid the parking calculations, and the proposed amount of parking is still met. So that will be sufficient. So, in sum, this is final site plan review. And the most significant elements are whether they've met all the engineering and natural features requirements of the zoning ordinance. Did you have any questions for me or for our engineer or for the applicant? Or shall I turn it over to the applicant?
Any questions for Elizabeth? Seeing, let's have the applicant come up, and if you have additional information you'd like us to know.
You are welcome to move as you see fit, or and I'm happy to change the slide.
Thank
for
you.
too.
Name is Nate Kaufman. I'll make it brief. Elizabeth covered it really well there. We did make some changes from the last plan that was here last December based on some of the conditions and some of the things we just wanted to change ourselves. Some of the things we changed ourselves, again, were the basements. We have basements now in the north units and the south units. You know, the north units have garages, the south units don't, so we thought it'd be really nice to add some basements. Our soil borings reiterated the fact that the soils would be suitable for that, and that would not be an issue with the water table. Going down the condition list quickly, like Elizabeth did, we, on the encroachment in the retention pond area, we were at 52 feet, and now we're at 75, which is the minimum, so we are out of that danger zone there, so that is covered. Also, after borings, recently we discovered some sand in that retention area and actually changed it from detention to retention, which means we no longer need an outlet on that pond going down that ravine and into that creek, which was a huge change environmentally. Obviously, it eliminated the need for another directional bore for that overflow pipe. Let's see. We also added a 4-foot chain link fence, like she mentioned, around the stormwater basin to meet the ordinance there. On the grading plan, we completed that, as she mentioned. We do show grading on the church property. We have a great relationship with the church and the heads over there, and they're in full support of that versus a retaining wall. That would kind of be an eyesore way back in the woods and potentially a safety issue. You know, if there's kids playing back there, or maybe they mistake it for the church property or the park. So we proposed a 30-foot grading easement with them. And they said, hey, if you guys get this approved, you know, we don't see a problem with that. They want to make their property flow really nicely with the neighbors. Tree protection and root protection zones, as Elizabeth mentioned again, initially we were planning on wrapping some snow fence and other protection items around these trees. And that was just super tedious with the amount of trees, so we kind of went the extra mile and did the fence around the whole property at the drip line to make sure, you know, excavators, other equipment, and so forth is not going to be damaging, roots, trees itself, and the bark and whatnot. The geotechnical report that we also did for the soil borings on the sewer path, which, as she mentioned, goes through the park and to Consumers Energy. There was some concerns, I think, with Nathan that, hey, if that was a sandy soil, that would collapse and potentially fail. But, our discoveries were that it was clay, which is actually good for boring. That way, when you're done boring the hole, it doesn't collapse and you can get the pipe in there and be successful in the connection. So the way that boring works is it's fully underground, so everything on top is not disturbed. Really, the disturbance areas are the beginning and the end. So we can limit the majority of the area, will be untouched, obviously. The consumer's easement, I believe we already have approval from the park to go underneath that. I've also been in communication with consumers on getting an easement through there, and that's no problem. We're just waiting on approval. So they have all the copies of the easements, the sketches, and they're just essentially just waiting. Landscape plan, as Elizabeth mentioned, the buffer between the park and our property was very important. We didn't want, to have buildings and then trees, we want a smooth transition. Luckily, there's a lot of mature trees on that south property line, and as she mentioned, on the southwest corner, we're going to fill in with our own items to make sure that there's a good buffer there to meet the ordinance. And the park connection, we did a concrete sidewalk off one of our sidewalks. We talked to Carrie in the Parks Department, and that was her preferred area to connect. Last thing, the playground. Last time we didn't have details. It's pretty basic, to be honest. It's a 24 by 24 play area with a playground really similar to what's shown in that picture, with probably 2 park benches on the side. So, if a parent walks down, they can sit and watch their kids and hang out, and maybe a picnic table in the corner if there's room. And that's all I got. If you have any additional questions, we have our engineer and builder here as well.
Great, thank you. So I wasn't here last time, so I'm going to rely heavily on those of you who were. But I guess my one question is related to the stormwater, and I don't know if you want to come up to and give us your take, Nate. But I guess I don't know what the conversations were other than reading through minutes. But are there other preferred options related to meeting stormwater requirements, or is this the best kind of situation for meeting those stormwater requirements?
Jump in for you.
Well, I think some of it too is based on the plan that's proposed, so keep that in mind.
Sure. Yeah, I guess I'm thinking about the concerns related to the fence right near the play area for the disturbance as minimal as it is into those, protecting those trees. As it's, I guess I don't know. We're asked to consider these things, I guess. So I'm just trying to think of ways that those conditions could be kind of further met all the way.
Yeah, I think organically it's improved a lot over the original detention pond plan, which required that outlet down the ravine and through the protection area. Now we're retention. We have, sandy soils at the bottom of that pond, which is going to limit that. The playground area, part of the reason why it's there, we would like to utilize the space to the north for snow storage in the winter. In theory, typically we wouldn't want it right next to the pond, but given there's a 4-foot chain link fence there, we felt pretty comfortable. If we moved it north, it would, again, the snow storage and potentially a future connection to the northern property, if, who knows, if that even happened, then it would be in the way of that as well.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah, a few additional notes. So Nate Williams with Environmental Services, stormwater engineer. I'll start, and please feel free to interrupt with any questions or clarifying comments as I'm going here. So yeah, with the presented site plan, The layout, storm sewer with the pond sizing, seems like it can meet our stormwater criteria. So our stormwater criteria are generally built on, does the proposed changes to the site leave it in a similar or better condition than what it currently is? And with a site like this, where you're changing something from a wooded lot to heavily impervious, the stormwater volume associated with having to deal with that on site can be very large. So as you can see here, large development, large pond footprint. So that was some of the reasoning in the earlier conditions of the special land use approval was, hey, is this, the footprint that they proposed along with some of these really rough numbers going to be feasible to be able to meet our permit standards? And after the geotech report and correspondence with the applicant's team, it looks like, yes, we may have to tweak some things here or there, talk nuts and bolts, they'll still have to get normal permits. But it seems like this layout will be able to meet our development stormwater criteria. So some of those, really technical permit aspects will still be reviewed with potentially some small changes here and there. There's been talk about the outlet, if it's needed, how the sizing works, overflow protection, some of that kind of stuff. Those are all items that are covered, within the stormwater ordinances that we can say, hey, this pipe too shallow, this pipe, too small, and we can kind of deal with some of those items with that part of the review. Some of the items that are not going to be really well under the ordinances that we control with the permit review are like what Elizabeth mentioned, the steep slope type items and the broader character of environmental protection on the site with the water feature, with the woods, how it interacts with the neighboring sites. So some of those softer things are what I'll be looking to your guidance on as well for when we get into the permit approval process. So as far as nuts and bolts sizing, it seems like they can do it with this layout. As I think Kristen alluded to, there are a number of different ways you can lay out a site and kind of tuck things here and there. You can do different types of vegetations to help soak up different amounts of water, so there's other options. We may end up seeing some of that on a small scale too with final permit approvals if they do, native vegetation in some pockets, you might be able to reduce some of that volume. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some of those changes. Personally, our stormwater philosophy in the city is the more you can decentralize it, that's what we like to see and what we hopefully our ordinances incentivize. So we love to see the more rain garden pocket management for volumes on site. This site being, you can see the layout with the number of units, road. There's a lot of space that's taken up just with the amount of space you need to get cars, garages, houses, and all that. So it is challenging to kind of work some of that with the amount of proposed units. So yeah, I suppose I'll leave it at that, unless you have any specific questions for me at this point. I'm happy to come back up multiple times too.
No, that was really helpful. Thank you very much, Nate. Other questions for staff or the applicant?
I have a question about the retention pond. Is it permissible or possible? I see a lot of what looks like trees around it. And I'll tell you, I always worry when I see these of kids climbing the fences. Are you planning any vegetation or anything around the perimeter? It seems like on the far side, which would be what, the east side, west side? East side. A lot of trees, but anything else that you're adding to it to make it appear nice,
On the east side of the pond or just the whole perimeter?
The whole, the perimeter on what I think is the west side seems not to have a lot of vegetation around it, the other one. Do you intend to do any plantings or landscaping around it? And maybe I'm not looking at it particularly. Yeah.
We have grass and a chain link fence proposed, so I guess the answer is no.
I can add another comment there too. So the fencing proposed around the retaining wall is largely required also from the stormwater ordinances, where we have, language to say if you have a depression X number of feet deep or expected to see water regularly or could in any way be a hazard to the public, we defer those to the kind of fencing you'd need around like swimming pools, that sort of thing. So the intent is to, with a big hole in the ground that might have water and kids possibly being around, obviously protection is of importance. So that is the intent of that fence, and it's referenced in other parts of the planning and zoning code.
Nate, you had said fencing around the retaining wall. Did you mean the retention?
Retention
Sorry,
pond,
did I say wall? Yeah.
You did,
wall.
but, okay, I assumed. I did too. I just wanted to clarify
Appreciate
for
that.
us.
And typically, we would, on the tops of that bank, we would line it with, an evergreen or something, but with the chain link fence, there's just not a lot of room left, to be honest. And you'd either have to put the chain link down into the basin or the trees, and then at that point, it's just kind of silly, so.
Is it possible to move the playground a little further north so it's away from the pond a little bit more? Or is there a reason it's located there?
We definitely could. Again, the reason we put it where it was is primarily snow storage in the wintertime. When we had our landscaper look at this, he was a little concerned already about where to put it. So, naturally, this area and along this cul-de-sac, along with this pocket here, will be used for any excess storage that won't fit next to the dumpster enclosures here or in these little grassy islands. And then also another reason, if for some reason this public road ever connected north to the church property, then we wouldn't have to move the playground potentially, here back where it was originally planned. He said we can move it 10 feet.
That's where we have the plan up there. You can see we've got a flat area next to.
Can you come up?
Adam Feenstra, the design engineer. You can see we were kind of building up the ground around the cul-de-sac, and so you can see in the play area we've got this flat area, and you can see for about 10 feet north of that play area it's still flat. So that's kind of the room we have to move it away. So absolutely we can shift it so there's some distance between it and the retention basin fence, but we're limited because there's not much that flat area there, and we didn't want to increase the flat area because then we'd have to take out a bunch of mature trees. So, that's kind of the restrictions that kind of placed it where it is.
Thank you.
So, given grading on neighboring sites and tree protection and everything that we're talking about, and I think our last meeting, we were taking driveways and trying to not make them extra wide. This drive, or this street, is proposed at 30 feet currently. And I think we were in the 24-foot range and trying to advocate for that. And if we're also talking about stormwater and potential questions about whether or not for retention, it seems to me, I'm curious, is there an opportunity to reduce the street width and then pull the townhomes and the parking further south so that you have less grading on the neighboring site and you have more room to do what you need to do and also potentially solve some stormwater concerns?
Our primary reason for wanting to hold the fairly standard 30-foot cross-section here is to maintain on-street parking for the north townhome units. With the garages and some parking in the back, that works great for the residents. But a lot of times, if they're going to have guests, it's a lot easier to have your guests park in front where your front door is instead of behind with your garage.
Are those on-street spaces part of your calculation? They're not drawn as on, so that's why I was confused, I guess, because I didn't see any indication of on-street spaces.
No, they're not part of our calculations because we don't want to rely on them for residents to park in, but we are anticipating a lot of guests to be using them as parking.
Okay, how many parking spaces are you providing? Actually striped counted parking spaces?
I don't have the number in front of me, but I know I think we're at something like 2 or 3 per unit for the north side. And then, I don't remember if we were at 2 per unit or just over 2 per unit for the south side, actually. Yeah.
So I guess I don't know if we went, seems like I would have brought this up last time we talked about it, and maybe I did. We've got to be getting real close. If we're doing street parking too, we've got to be over or above double the required amount in the zoning ordinance. So
So the nuance here, the difference between this case and the previous case is that this is being designed to be a public street. It is not being designed, yeah, that's okay. It's not being designed to be an internal drive to an apartment complex. So because of that, engineering standards dictate the street width and the not the easement, but the dedicated space for the public street.
Yep, sorry, I missed the public street part. My bad.
Will it be striped for parking?
We
not
don't stripe public streets, no.
Great.
And is there, in the northern part, you see little, I think that's just counting the width of it or something. That's one way
Yes.
going out. There's no way to make it two-way. Or it's not wide enough, but is that what it is?
The only way to make it two-way would be to eliminate all the parallel parking spots along the north end.
Okay, so that's what I do see is parallel parking.
Yes.
On the north side too. Okay. And are those intended then to be used by owners or their guests?
Both. It's a situation where each unit has a two-car garage, but you know how it goes with garages. Typically, stuff is in half of it and the car is in the other half. And so we didn't want to make a situation where people are using their garage as storage and then all of a sudden there's absolutely nowhere for them to park. So we wanted to make sure that there was some outside parking so that them, or if they've got a kid with a third car, it's really not going to be a problem for them.
I understand. Thanks.
Other questions? Okay.
I have
go ahead.
sorry. I have a question about going back to the retention basin and the trees. I don't think, I missed a response, I'm sorry if one was provided, but our understanding is that because of the limits of grading being underneath the tree canopy will inevitably disturb the trees that are considered high value. Is your assertion different than that? And if so, why?
So I want to be clear that we have no intention of cutting trees down, grading, doing anything inside that 75-foot buffer. We do have some trees shown as red in there. That's operating under a very pessimistic assumption that we might damage the root system to an extent that those trees would die.
Yep.
We're going to leave them there and we're going to cross our fingers that they live.
But how could they if the disturbance, the construction of the pond will inevitably cut the root system based on the existing canopy line?
Yeah, the construction of the pond is, the pond slopes are dug at a 1-on-4 slope, which means for every 4-foot horizontal distance, we drop down 1 foot. So I know, trees have a very large root system. So yes, we will be within fairly close to the canopy, we will be cutting some dirt out, which will be disturbing the root system, but we're not going to be eliminating the full root system for that portion of the tree. It continues to go down and that portion will stay in place because we're only cutting a foot, maybe 2, that's within the influence of the tree canopy. So, as I said, we show them as red. just to operate under a pessimistic assumption and to make sure that if they were to die, we're still meeting canopy cover requirements and all this stuff. But
So I'm not talking about the red ones, I'm talking about the black ones. So when you look to the east side of the pond, there are high-quality trees that are within feet of the edge of the pond.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
For the black ones, it's generally accepted that if you disturb less than about 20% of the root system, the tree will be fine. And so the black circles that kind of encroach there are trees that we're limiting that disturbance of the overall root system to 20% or so or less, so that we are very confident that those trees will survive.
We didn't share that same confidence, so I appreciate your comments on that, so.
Any additional questions? No. All right, go ahead and have a seat. All right, deliberation.
I do recall, I think I was here when, I know I was, I remember the discussion. I think they have shown, and I'm confident with the input of city staff, that they have met the requirements stated at the time of their last appearance here. So I support.
Others?
Yeah, I think, I mean, to Kristen's point, I think that the question of all reasonable efforts, or whatever that language is in the, I can't scroll my PDF fast enough to read that language again, but it's a challenge, right? And it's our judgment then to decide whether or not these efforts have been appropriate enough to meet the standards that we ask them to meet. I do think there are trees that may or may not be saved because of the efforts taken. I think that some of the reasons, if I recall my own concerns that we asked this to come back, was particularly around that north property line. I without the grading permission, it was clear there was going to be some retaining wall work there. They got some grading permission, being within that 75-foot buffer of the waterway with the pond. They've obviously adjusted the pond that way. It's tough because I would suggest that the efforts taken were to meet the requirements were somewhat less than wholehearted. At the same time, I appreciate trees. Trees are a renewable resource, can be replanted, and I hate to drive cost into projects or lose housing units in order to save a few trees, I guess. That's always the consideration, right? Obviously, we're losing a lot of trees for housing. So I think for me, as I reflect on the previous meeting, I'm comfortable with where we've gotten to at this point. I think from a process perspective, maybe I would ask staff. I mean, we are. I don't know that in my time on the planning committee. Well, maybe that's not quite true. Typically, site plan approval is an administrative approval, right? And now we're doing it at the planning commission level. So I'm curious if there are specific items that we are approving here, should we approve this, that maybe would not happen at the staff level, or things that, right? I mean, we came back, we asked them to come back, and we asked for this site plan to come back to this commission because there were some judgment-related items, I believe, that either we or staff or a combination felt more comfortable if it came back than if we just allowed staff to move that forward. And I guess I'm curious from the director's perspective if if we've I don't know if we've met those requirements, if, where are those judgments? I just want to be clear about that, I guess.
Sure. The last plan that you saw lacked some detail, which isn't always atypical for what the Planning Commission sees in a special land use consideration. The reason that our process is set up that way for typical projects is because we want to try to facilitate development and make sure that, especially when we're making use-based decisions, that if the use is determined not to be appropriate, that we don't have an applicant or developer go through the expense that a project like this has obviously gone through relative to engineering. So we lacked sufficient detail in the first iteration to fully understand whether the layout was going to be, I want to say constructible or feasible, and what the impacts might be to the surrounding neighborhood, to surrounding properties, surrounding neighbors, sorry, not neighborhood. And so relative to grading, tree removal, stormwater management, we decided that once those plans were further developed, we wanted to make sure that any sort of site layout implications did not materially impair the determination that the use at this density was an appropriate decision by the Planning Commission.
Sure, and I appreciate that explanation. And in that case, I would suggest that what we have before us perhaps pushes the envelope a little bit, but overall, I am comfortable with. I think, for me, candidly, or the one suggestion that I might make is that on the north property line, where testimony was the church desired no retaining wall because it felt like it was in the woods. I would counter that. It's not in the woods. It's right next to the driveway that's being constructed. It would be part of, essentially feel as though it was part of the new development property. I would suggest there that a minor retaining wall could be added to avoid damaging critical trees in that area in a way that would be inconsequential to the development and would hopefully reassure us or ensure that those trees remain. In the detention pond, I would ask Nate, in a fenced retention pond, is 1-on-4 the maximum slope we can use?
No. Yeah, there's some flexibility if it is fenced to allow some different configurations. Typically, 1-on-4 is used as a default of what's constructible, what's stable, and in
maintainable,
a lot of cases, what's mowable.
Yep.
So, yeah, you might be able to change that a little bit. You're probably not going to gain a whole lot by shifting, but those are typically the driving factors.
If we were interested in staying away from the drip line of those critical trees, and it's not significant in that area, it's a matter of feet, and I wouldn't suggest appropriate that a retention wall would be appropriate in the backside of a basin like that, but steepening up those slopes and perhaps with the depth of that pond and the storm sewer that's in there, it feels like a minor opportunity to provide some in-pipe storage as well, to provide. Perhaps there are other ways to slightly increase those slopes on the backside and increase detention or the need for volume in that detention basin through upstream methods, whether they be pipe storage or rain gardens, as you mentioned before. I think that those are, I guess, both those things now as I'm speaking, the north side and the detention pond. I think we could stay out of those drip lines, and that would feel to me a more complete addressing of the conditions that we placed upon it in December.
Yeah, do you want me to comment on any of that as well?
Sure.
I don't have to, but yeah, I mean, to summarize, I think what you are saying is to shrink the footprint of the pond or shrink the volume needed to be managed in that pond with some alternatives further upstream of that particular point, which is valid. And I mean, I'm not going to speak to how they can or should manage their stormwater on site. My part is mostly what is approvable, and to bring up a couple of kind of environmental sensitive spots for your all consideration. So I may leave that back to the applicant if that's something they feel is feasible to do in other parts of the site. It would be approvable from the Nordens standpoint. If you can count smaller depressions along the site, it can definitely come out of the volume needed to be required to maintain on site. So that all works in line with what we kind of approve and permit. If you are looking in close detail at trees along the west side, I will add from a utility standpoint. Oh, now I'm going to need to flip through all these. I will highlight for your, well, where was that sheet, Elizabeth? Oh, here it is. The sanitary sewer is making that connection off-site into the sanitary main that Elizabeth highlighted at the beginning of the presentation. There will be some disturbances associated with that. I know the applicant covered how they're hoping to minimize that. So if you're, I know the focus is kind of narrowing in on saving as many trees as possible, so just be aware that would be a consideration. Same if a pond outlet was needed, you could bore under the slopes, but you'd still need to disturb at the start and end point, assuming everything goes well in the construction process. I'll also note that those constructions in the proximity to the creek and the connection to the sanitary sewer have other permits governing them as well, aside from just the stormwater business that we deal with in-house. So state level permits would likely be required for work around the stream, as well as the typical engineering permits to tie into a public, sewer water system type of thing. So, yeah, that may have been overkill on your question or comment. So I apologize if I took up too much airspace.
No, that's fine. I think that I guess I would say, in summary, it feels to me as though the north property line could be, the work along the north property line and along the backside of the detention basin could be modified slightly without material impact to the development that would keep us out of those drip lines. And I guess I would suggest that that's a potential condition. Otherwise, I think I'm okay with it.
Other thoughts? Kristen, did you have anything else?
I was just had drafting, I suppose, a condition to address Commissioner Yonker's statement, but encourage to be more, what is the intent of what you're trying to accomplish, and then let the applicant and Nate work through the solution. And so I had drafted that the retention basin be modified or alternative stormwater management techniques be utilized to eliminate encroachment into the drip line of the high-value trees. And then the solution is really on the engineers that are sitting in front of us. If that's your intent, then they figure out how to do it. And then sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. I think I guess the one thing I'm concerned about is a playground is not required, right? And so I'm concerned that they just expand the detention basin and eliminate the playground. I think the playground's a benefit to the community. So I would hate to see that. I think it can be done with some slightly steepening up the slopes of the backside of that detention basin and perhaps some other. But you're right. I don't want to direct how it happens, but I think some minor modifications could happen. And I guess I'm open to comments from Mr. Feenstra on that. Even on that north property line, I see that the road is sloped where the valley is along the edge of the parallel parking spaces, and I just wonder if we bring that valley slightly further south, if it couldn't affect that grading enough to even get out of that drip edge. It's just a matter of feet. So we don't need to debate that now, but that would be my hope.
If there's concern about the elimination of the play area, could that be incorporated into the condition as well, that the playground stay or not be removed as part of the solution?
Yep. I mean, I think that's part of, sorry, I'm staring at you, Mr. Hooker. Does that need to be a condition? I mean, that's clearly the intent is they've just stated that the playground needs to stay.
By they, who do you mean?
Planning Commission. I can modify the condition to
So-
make that clear.
If they approve the plan as proposed, there's a play area in it, and it is where it is. So I think the condition maybe would want to, your proposed condition, Kristen, might want to incorporate something about retaining, just clarify that the planning commission would be amenable perhaps to the playground being moved as part of that stormwater discussion. Moved but not removed, sorry.
Yeah, I can just add, however, that the alternative shall not result in the elimination of the playground.
Yeah.
Anything else? Did you want to respond?
I wanted to just comment on the retention basin. Yes, we can absolutely play with the slopes a little bit to try to pull away from those drip lines a little bit around the retention basin. To the north, the slopes that we are proposing on the neighbor's property, the trees that are there were all unaccredited or invasive species. So we're not really impacting any high quality trees along the north line there.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then I'm comfortable with that, and we can add that to the condition that I don't want to go through and, verify that, but I believe you. So, yeah, if that's the case, then I'm less concerned with it.
Excellent. Sounds like we have some good consensus. Is someone willing to make a motion?
I've talked the most, so I'll do it. Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Commission approves the request of the Brave Development LLC, Brandon Visser, for final site plan review of a proposed residential development at 1644 Ball Avenue Northeast for the following reasons. Number one, the proposed use will meet the purpose and intent of the master plan and zoning ordinance, including the zone district, because all reasonable efforts have been undertaken in the architectural layout and site engineering design of the proposed development to avoid unnecessary disturbances to the natural features setback area, to high-quality trees in the protection area, and to steep slopes. 2A, the site is designed to comply with all provisions of the zoning ordinance because natural features, including mature vegetation, will be incorporated in the site design as to the maximum extent practicable. 2B, the proposed site will be developed so as not to impede the normal and orderly development or improvement of surrounding property for uses permitted by this chapter because the proposed development is oriented, sited, and architecturally designed in a manner appropriate for this site and surrounding property. 2E, all elements of the site design are harmoniously and efficiently organized in relation to topography, the size and type of the lot, character of the neighborhood and adjoining property, and the type, size, and proportions of the buildings, because this general site topography and any natural landforms unique to the property will be maintained and made part of the development to reinforce the neighborhood character. Stormwater runoff that could result from major changes in topography will be minimized, and grading to the north is in lieu of providing a retaining wall to facilitate construction of the drive and parking area. 3A, site landscaping features such as mature vegetation and steep slopes will be preserved in their natural state insofar as practicable by or because the development will minimize tree and soil removal, alteration to the natural drainage courses, and the amount of cutting, filling, and grading. And the submitted tree preservation plan designates the extent of grading and shows tree preservation fencing to be installed at the drip line of protected trees. 3B, natural features and site topography are incorporated into the proposed site design to the maximum extent practicable through adequate setbacks and landscape buffers, the placement of buildings and structures, 3C, buildings and structures will be placed in a manner that preserves and protects environmentally sensitive areas because adequate setbacks will be provided to abutting uses, and trenchless installation of the proposed sanitary sewer line and connection structure will minimize disturbances in the natural features and steep slope area. 3D, landscape buffers or green belts will be provided that ensure that proposed uses are adequately buffered from one another and from surrounding public and private property because notable vegetation will be preserved along the south property line and will be augmented with additional plant material to meet the buffer requirements for the MCN LDR zone district. 3E, stormwater management measures will be employed to satisfy city ordinances because the submitted stormwater narrative and calculations seem to indicate that the project will generally be able to meet standard stormwater development criteria, and the submitted geotech report include soil borings and an evaluation from a geotech consultant that generally supports the proposed stormwater plan. 4E, safe, convenient, and well-defined bicycle and pedestrian circulation within and to and from the site will be provided through a direct connection to Ball Perkins Park, which is supported by the Parks Department. And 5, the scale and design of the proposed development does not place an excessive burden on the services currently furnished or may be required by the city or other public agency, including stormwater management, sanitary sewer removal, and treatment administrative services. Because adequate off-site public infrastructure exists to support the development, and the cost of any new public or private infrastructure will be borne by the developer. Be it further resolved that the following conditions of the approval shall apply to this project. 1, that the condition of approval from December 12, 2024 shall remain in effect. 2, that the application and plans, including the floor plan revisions for basements in the northerly units submitted by the applicant and signed, dated, and stamped by the planning director shall constitute the approved plans, except if plan elements do not meet ordinance requirements and/or as amended in this resolution. 3, that details of the proposed play area and playground equipment be submitted and associated with the LEDS permit. 4, that the proposed use will comply with other applicable city ordinances and policies and state laws. I'm going to insert you here, Kristen.
Yep. First one is that the retention basin be modified or alternative stormwater management techniques be utilized to eliminate encroachment into the drip line of the high-value trees. However, the alternative shall not result in the elimination of the playground.
Perfect.
The second one, I'm not sure if I got this right, so for your consideration, that high-quality trees on the adjacent property to the north shall not be removed or affected to accommodate site grading, and if high-quality trees are to be removed or affected, the applicant shall utilize a retaining wall system to accommodate the necessary grading.
Yeah, affected, I would say, I mean, really, it's grading within the drip line of any high-quality trees shall be avoided through the use of retaining walls.
Sounds like you just wrote that one yourself.
Okay, there it is.
Along
the north property line.
With that, hopefully other staff can retain that. With that, I'm wondering if your finding for 2E that states grading to the north is in lieu of providing a retaining wall to facilitate construction of the drive and parking area should be stricken then.
Yeah, strike that third, yes. I agree. So 2E, it's just the first 2 bullet points. And then the condition of any grading along the north property line within the drip line of, or grading within the drip line of high-quality trees along the north property line shall be avoided by the use of retaining walls.
All right, we have a motion.
And
Oh, go
one more,
ahead. Oh, I'm sorry.
5, that this approval shall have immediate effect. Now we have a motion.
Now we have a motion.
Support.
We have support. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Susan. Okay, now we have Planning Commission discussion. Anything we need to discuss?
Elizabeth noted at the beginning of the meeting that we will be canceling the second meeting in October. So for the rest of the year, you will only have one meeting per month, October, November, and December. So we've got a lot of things going on, including the change of the minutes, and there's a lot of staff time that obviously that goes into the preparation. And so while we certainly want to work with applicants and development to keep moving forward, there's also the practical reality of existing capacity. And if we try to do too much, then we risk not doing something well. And so I needed to make the decision that we don't have the capacity to accommodate a second meeting and everything that goes with the preparation of that. So we've canceled it.
All that makes sense. We obviously don't want y'all burning out on us, so.
Thank you. I think that's all we have.
Great. I'll open it up for public comment. Okay, I will close public comment. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.